Life is pain. Oblivion alone yields peace. You call me stranger. I call myself salvation.
The love of a god is not a blessing, it's a scar.
If destiny herself beckons me, then I shall greet her like an old lover.
There's gotta be more to life than making mistakes and making up for your mistakes.
I'm the paragon of risk and reward. Behaving is more of a suggestion.
Fate is an offer I intend to reject.
You don't know me. I'm unpredictable, bitch.
I don't need to be a paragon to help save the world.
I came back for a reason, and I am not stopping until I find it.
I will solve the cataclysm, and I'll solve the mystery of myself, too. 4 paragons, 4 keepers, 1 stranger. Huh. Odds are in our favor. Now let's go save Endake.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Arc 8, Episode 3 of Transplanar RPG's The Second Stranger. I am your game master and executive producer, Connie. My pronouns are they, he, and she. You can find me all across the internet at by Connie Chang. That's BYCONNIECHANG, namely Twitter, Ko-Fi, TikTok, and Frank, you're on Twitch with Transplanar RPG. I'm going to pass along introductions up and over to Austin.
Hey everybody, I'm Austin, and I'm going to do my intro right this time. I'm Austin, my pronouns are he, they, she. You can find me over on Twitter at SailorSCT, at SailorSCT Austin. And today, I'm playing a Biku, probably is going to sit down Ishtar. That's it from me, Val.
Hi everyone, I'm Val. I'm Valiant Dorian, also known as Valiant Love Wins Dorian, and I'm letting everyone know because that is a threat. I use he and his pronouns, Twitch variety streamer and TTRPG performer. And tonight I have the distinct pleasure of playing Voska, Paragon Nebusa, who uses she, they pronouns and is having a grand old time in the face of the apocalypse. Dare?
I am Dare, yes. Hi, I'm Dare, pronouns she, they, fey. I play our ever-lovely Triton Monk Gentle, who's done nothing wrong ever, but for real. You can find me in all parts of the internet at Dare to Dream RPG. That is DARE, the number 2, DREAM RPG. I'm ignoring Connie and C making faces at me because Gentle's done nothing wrong ever. I'm going to throw it over to Erica.
Hi everybody, I'm Erica, she, her pronouns, and I play Vasanti Noxurzo, also she, her pronouns, your draconic sorcerer who's trying to be a good person, ? And you can find me here on Twitch where I stream being a gay cowboy on Red Dead role-playing. You can find me at Erica Please, that's Erica PLZ, and I will pass it on to Max.
Hey, I'm Max. My pronouns are they, them. I play Dewey. What will he do? Or what will he do this episode? You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Starchmonger. And I'll pass things over to Humna.
Hello everybody, my name is Humna, I use any and all pronouns, and I am a TTRPG performer. Today I will be playing Joan Godler, who uses they, he pronouns. I don't have anything fun to say about Joan. Their soul is corrupted. That's a time. It's fine. I'm gonna pass it up top to C.
Hi everyone, my name is Sia, I use they, them pronouns. You can find me making very trans, very gay art on the internet at PieSharpArt. I am playing Oka Hien, who has many boyfriends, all of which are problems. So that's them. You can find me passing it right over to Val.
And that perfect segue, we are so happy and proud to announce that this episode of The Second Stranger is sponsored by Dimitri O'Priens and Explain Trade, a negotiation skills training consultancy believing in the power of D&D and Transplanar's potential to grow, tell great stories, and lift our communities up. Explain Trade trains negotiators for governments, big companies, NGOs, and offers e-learning courses for individuals looking to get a better deal from their boss. Please unionize, I beg of you. Check them out at explaintrade.com. And we've got a bunch of other folks to thank, so Erica, who else do we have to thank?
Yes, we love to thank here our Patreon paragons. These are the folks who have donated at the highest tier to our Patreon, and so we take this time to thank you. Those folks are Alex, Ozra, Bradley, Brooke Bright, Charles, Chilakras, Cora Eckert, Emma, Hat, Conding, Lex Slater, Purple Mouse, Scruffuses, and Target. Thank you so much. And now, Max, can you please remind Grandma Erica what happened last time?
I will do my very best. Last time on The Second Stranger, the Alliance of the Eight meets at the end of the world. Old Mama Lightning turns her back on the Alliance. Dewey is tasked with providing a failsafe for the Paragon and Keeper souls to be used in battle, and the party agrees to lure Lilith and Oblivion to them with a Paragon cert. In the meantime, they spread out across all of Andake to hunt down the entropic beasts and distract the stranger. Dewey begins his work on the pendants and reunites with Tonga. Vasanti tries to shift into draconic form with the help of Abiku and Sunyi. Vasca and Costas have a heart-to-heart. Oka, Jiran, and Kane make a promise, and Gentle finds Wooming in the Dream Shield and accidentally catches Oblivion's attention. Use the ! recap command in chat to reach our full written recap document. It's got everything you need to know up until this point, and I will pass things over to C.
Thank you so much for that, Max. Content warnings for this episode include fantasy violence, apocalypse, trauma and grief, depictions of war, body horror, gore, blood and bloodletting, death of loved ones, familial struggles, complex and complicated relationships, romance and references to sexual entanglements, monsters and monstrosity, and eldritch abominations. Please take care of yourselves, because we do get into heavy topics in this show, and use ! CW in chat at any time to get a look at our content warnings and ! safety to learn about our lines and veils, to know what territory we will never get into, no matter how dark things get. And I will pass it over to Connie for our fate roll.
That's right. So everybody, please make your fate rolls now. A gay D20, no modifiers. So while my lovely players are figuring out their fate, as always, please let me bring your attention to the Doom and Fortune tracker right here on the overlay. Should be right over to the right of the screen over here. Once per session, our PCs will be making a war effort roll to push the tracker back and forth until Doom strikes and something terrible happens, or Fortune smiles on the world. So based on the reactions already, I think Doom might be striking soon, but actually the trackers have nothing to do with the fate rolls, or do they? These two are completely separate mechanics, and we'll see what happens with them as the arc continues to go on. So let's start in same order of introductions. I want to get your fate rolls. Austin/Abiku, what'd you get?
A very, very handsome 17.
That is very handsome indeed. 17 from Abiku. Let's go to Vasca/Val.
A very, very hot, sexy, snady 19.
Ooh, a hot, sexy, snady 19 reporting in. Let's go to Gentle.
There's one thing that connects Nitbuza is the fact we both got fucking 19s.
Hey! Nitbuza squad coming in hot, or should I say cold. Let's go to Vasanti.
I'm bringing things back down a little bit to a calm 11.
Calm 11? Okay, that's respectable. That's average. That's literally average. Let's go to Dewey.
You can skip me, right? I rolled a nat 1.
Bad Dad Dewey bringing it home with a nat 1. Let's go up to Gerard.
Godjar LLC sticks together. I got a 3.
Oh.
Godjar LLC bringing down the market value of Paragon's limited liability company as well. And finally, let's go to Oka.
A gentleman's 16.
Okay, a gentleman 16. Noted. And now, onto the title and verse of this particular episode. As a reminder, the titles of all of our Transplanar episodes are taken from lines of poetry and works of art by marginalized creators. This particular episode's title is called Sad Slow Songs of Parting, from Eulogy for a Dying World by Connie Chong. And the full verse reads as follows. The forest is shivering. The fragrance of the forest is shivering against the broad black leaves of the hapu fern. The palapale with its black narrow ferns, the trembling ferns and timid flowers. Above, above, the birds in the sky fall down. Below, below, the fish of the ocean sing songs about the end of all things. The woman is there, The fiery eyes, the stormy locks, the columns of smoke rising. The top of the mountain rises. She perches on the peak. Her foot is in the dying ocean, in the reef of dying fish. The fish of the ocean are singing, their sad, slow songs of parting. The birds fall down, their colorful feathers kiss the current. The fish rise, their trembling scales turn to mist. Above, the woman perches on the peak. The sky is falling, the ocean is rising, the mountain is turning to mist. She opens her strong, broad arms and storms, until the long dark closes in. 10,000 miles of salt. 10,000 miles of desiccated soil, of withering sand, of coral structures, porous and leached, white as bone, ragged as beggar's breath. The seabed is exposed, naked, a white-washed expanse of knuckle bone, shrub, root, hazard, filth, spine. There are no flopping bodies of fish, no beached whales, no thrashing sharks or gasping eels, no storm-tossed leviathans, no flattened blooms of jellyfish, no lurching dwellers of the hidden deep, just void. Void in its immaculate completion, its flat and dry and cracked scripture. No souls linger here. This is not death's domain. The millions, billions, trillions of fish in the Hema and Sigirni Sea have been consecrated to the empty. And now, these former oceans become unto graveyards to ships. Hulking Fuchuan naval vessels on Toulon's southern border, double-hulled Uhanian voyagers, single-masted sailboats from Jukai, canoes and skiffs from the court, frigates and galleons off the shore of the Dragonfang coast. These corpses, and these corpses alone, litter the evaporated basin of Andake's former oceans, smashed against the dried-up ocean floor like discarded children's toys. A person, blue-skinned, twitching, staggers across the southern salt flats. Behind them, the looming mass of Nawa Mountain, its sides dappled by emerald jungle. They stagger forward, their sea green and black hair falling into piercing blue eyes, upper arms tattooed with oceanic imagery. Empty shadows lick off his shoulders in unstable miasmas of void, and a URL tag dangles from their left earlobe. He mindlessly stumbles past a crashed ship and vanishes into the salt. And on the prow of this ship, we see Captain Lahahana, an old turtle woman leaning fearfully against Manaya Wairua. The paragon of Mahu dutifully pulls injured sails from the wreckage, her face a careful mask of calmness. And yet, underneath it, in the pull of her brow and the twitch of her bottom lip, we see fear, rage, and coiling beneath it all, the strongest, most uncontrollable, overwhelming emotion of all, grief. But before Manaya can scream, before she can cry, before she can do anything but stop to help the people around her, down comes the dust. Where the Godspine used to be, we now find nothing. Just flattened earth. Pebbles. Bald expanses of nutrient-starved dirt. Weeds, stones, lifeless grass, the same shade as the final grasses of Tongo. The northern border of Toulon now tumbles headfirst into a 100-mile-wide strip of Godspine detritus before colliding with the crimson-dappled sand of the Tenushlek. To the west, the Torovar Desert also hurtles toward a dead tract of land where the Godspine used to be, and wind now howls over this felled gulch, blasting past the hollow memory of where mountains once stood. The stranger's fist is a black sun in the sky. One by one, its fingers uncurl and the remnants of the Godspine filter down onto Andake in a flurry of parched white and red particles. At first, the Alliance thinks it's snow, then ash, or perhaps even bone dust, before realizing what it really is. Just dust. For 3 days and 3 nights, the blood-red sky rains even redder dust. The air is throttled with it. The sunless light blotted out, stifled darkness muffles the horizon, illuminated only by the Alliance's stalwart mages. This dust contains no soul work. It's not the remnants of life in the Godspine pulverized and scattered. It's not the ghosts of bulettes, lions, panthers, manticores, quee, harpies, scorpions, or even the people who call its peaks home. This dust is one thing, and one thing only: the lucent echo of destruction. And for 3 days and 3 nights, the dust falls, coating the ground in a thick blanket of white and vermilion powder, emanating a distinct lack. The empty has taken the sea, and it has taken the mountain too. Gentle, after you sense Oblivion's presence, you are shunted from the Dream Shield. When you return to Camp Vanguard with Wu Ming in tow, the Alliance is shocked to hear your findings. And for the rest of the Second Stranger War, Paragons and Keepers are made to sleep in shifts under the watchful eye of a Dream Prophet. The camp thrums with fear, desperation. Morale initiatives are undertaken and fully attended by soldiers, workers, civilians alike. The lines in the med wards grow long. One day, we see Oka, fully crimson, drenched in blood, riding out of camp on Sitara's back. We see Mercy charging forth, grabbing the vein, stopping Oka, shouting at them for them to come down. But Oka does not relent. They pull their elk free of Mercy's grasp and thunder out of camp, flinging themselves back into the fray, drenched in blood. Another night, we see Vasanti talking to Trenchfoot, the two of them huddled around a bonfire alongside other underground contacts. And the day after that, we see Abiku and Shrinyi gliding through the air on Sun's back, white and crimson dust tangling through their hair, their eyes scanning the parched ocean bed of the northern salt flats for signs of trouble. And in an evening, we see Jiran and Dewey in the blacksmith square working tirelessly on these new god jars, the clanging of metal on metal ringing out well into the night. And off to the side, we see Bud sitting calmly as Garu takes his measurements for armor. And even later into the evening, we find Sitlali and Voska in one corner of Camp Vanguard, faces drawn and illuminated by licking tongues of bonfire flame, talking in low, hushed tones. And the next morning, we find Gentle and Wu Ming in the mess hall, talking over bowls of congee. We pull in onto the scene in particular to find Wu Ming nervously wrapping her fingers along the side of her cup. White dust falls uninterrupted, a few flecks drifting into your shared breakfast.
Gentle, good luck on your mission to Dabathati. Give the mountains my sorrow.
Yeah, I can do that, and I'll need luck because I am dealing with Sybil.
Luck. Sybil, the cruel Sybil. Sybil the cruel Sybil. Yes, you will need luck, but I think you and Sitlali are the best people for the job. You are going to do great.
Thank you.
And on that, I think, we cut to Dabathati. Or rather, what used to be Dabathati. Gentle and Sitlali. The reports don't do justice to the aftermath of what we now call the evaporation. Standing vigil in the midst of a blasted field wrapped in a hill of black glass is the capital of the Republic of Talmud. From your vantage point on the other side of this structure, deep within the Torovar Desert, it looks like a massive black, chrysalis. Its boundaries are foggy, translucent. You think you see the mercurial shimmer of waterfalls beyond it, the bustling of bodies on streets, the jagged stalactites brimming on the ceiling. The chassis is, of course, Suraksha's gift. And Sitlali, you recognize this material intimately. After all, Old Mama Lightning had encased you in it in order to protect you from the chrysalis. And on the other side of this crystalline wall is where the two of you will find her. You know this to be true. So, in the desert, looking at Dabathati swaddled in a blanket of black glass, what do the two of you do?
I think Sitlali is probably petting Bud by at the scruff where he likes it, because they have not seen each other in a very long time. And they're just kind of surveying the scene and look to Gentle. We can do this. We're up for this, right?
Of course. Yeah.
You know I'm going to have to flirt with Sybil to get what we want, right?
I asked you to come here for a reason. And also you're way better at talking to Sybil than me. You know I don't necessarily care for them.
We got Bud back. That's the most important thing is we got Bud back.
I whisper in Raven's speech. The amount of parenting work I've had to do to help Bud unlearn some toxic behavior patterns, it's been outstanding. It's been a lot.
Whispered back in Raven's speech. When did you learn this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can kind of, I learned a little bit from Root, and then, I've spent some time sort of looking it up on my own.
Root, sweet breeze.
Yeah. Root helps, give Bud the ability to talk, so, I hung out with him a little bit ago.
Bud's ears perk up, have been perked up this entire conversation, even in Raven speech, and they just sort of say in perfect Raven speech,
Root, sweet breeze, my awakener, my creator, of course, imbued me with the ability to understand Common and his native tongue.
He knows Raven's. Of course he knows Raven's speech.
Why did you not think that he would know Raven's speech?
It never came up.
I, for one, I'm excited to see Sybil again. I miss them.
And Bud looks down and looks wistfully off into the glass.
I think scratch right between Bud's ears. I'm like, I know. That's why I brought you too. despite Sybil and I not getting along, you still deserve to see them.
Thanks, Gentle. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I trust you, and I love you. And I don't think I ever stopped trusting or loving you, really. I was just mad that you took me from a place with a lot of good food, and I was upset because I thought that you'd abandoned me. But after everything in the Iron Citadel and the Chasm, I can tell you really care about me. And you really care about the world, too. And so does Sybil. Sybil does really care about the world. And look! Here they come!
And as Bud sort of points in a specific direction of the crystal, like on the other side of the glass, the two of you see approaching the boundary of this huge black wall a Fire Genasi tiefling. They, of course, have deep red skin that turns black at their forearms, their hands, their fingertips. Their horns are pure obsidian, and they're cracked too. And in these magmatic cracks, steam vents and glows this kind of devilish red. Their eyes, as always, are these pure gold, right? And they're currently wearing their signature leather armor with a sash tied around their waist, and they kind of saunter up to the glass, and you can see them swimming into fuller detail, almost like they're on the other side of a fogged mirror, and only when they get closer can you really make out their figure. You can't see anything else that's specific about Dabathati beyond them. And they approach the glass, and they seem to lean on it and survey the two of you. But there's something underneath, I think. They're usually confident, very suave and snake-like almost demeanor that doesn't feel quite typically Sybil-like. There's something else bristling underneath it, almost thorny or prickly or uneven. So Sybil actually leans on the glass and taps on it twice, and a crack shoots downward from where they tapped it, almost like a lightning bolt, serrating through the wall, and it opens. It cracks open on either side like an aperture. And the two of you see them fully now. This glass is at least 10 feet thick, so it almost seems to form a jagged passageway that the two of you can squeeze through to get to Dabathati if you want. And Sybil on the other side has their arms kind of crossed lazily over their chest and is eyeing the two of you, and Bud is at attention, looks very excited and enthusiastic to see Sybil, and Sybil just goes, well, if it isn't Sitlali Thornheart yet again. Welcome back to our home, though under such dire circumstances. And yet, even as their hands are crossed over their chest, you see their fingers are drumming almost anxiously on one arm. What did the two of you do?
Sybil, it's always a pleasure. And I think they put a hand on Gentle's shoulder and squeeze, and then just kind of take the lead. And as they start to enter the passageway, I think she puts a hand out and touches the glass and strokes it a little and says, "Hello again, old friend. Saved a lot of people." And then keeps going.
Yeah, what about you, Gentle?
There's, I think, a very quiet sigh from Gentle as all this happens. Hi, Sybil. Bud and I are also here.
Hello, Gentle. And hello, Bud.
And Bud at that, very excitedly, gets up and, their tail starts wagging, and they, trot after Sitlali immediately.
It's good to see you alive and well. And you too, Gentle.
Same.
How has Gentle been treating you, Bud? Looks like you've been living the high life.
It's been good. I actually have been having a really great time with Gentle, though I have missed you, but I don't want the two of you to have tension anymore, because if this whole co-parenting thing is going to work out, then I think the two of you should bury the hatchet, so to speak.
My. Haven't you
matured. Sitlali. And I think at this point you've reached the end of the passageway, right? And Sybil reaches forward and does like a kiss on either side of your cheek.
Sitlali will reciprocate that.
As you do, because your passive perception is like incredibly high, that like low brimming emotion bubbling underneath Sybil's surface, you're really starting to pick up on it ambiently. And if you'd like, you can make an insight check.
Always. Have you ever known me to not make an insight check? Math. 24.
Noted. With a 24, Sitlali, you get the sensation that this is... So usually what you see from Sybil, the confidence, the kind of like fluidness, the slipperiness almost, is genuine. Like they're sort of like suave all the way down, but this seems almost like a veneer. Like they're putting up their own black glass to shield something deeper within. And as they sort of pull away from those like cheek kisses and look at you, you see in the depths of their golden eyes anxiety? No, it's not quite anxiety. It's something softer than that, something you've never seen on Sybil's face before. It hangs like an unfamiliar costume.
I think Sitlali reaches out and kind of like hesitantly but tenderly brushes Sybil's cheek with their thumb and just says, "There's something troubling you, dear one."
And you see their mouth, those soft lips, quiver almost, like they're on the brink of saying something to you, but they sort of tighten it and sort of squeeze their jaw. Let's talk somewhere a little bit more private, shall we? Welcome to Dabathati 2.0. And they turn and gesture and reveal the city to the two of you, and it's Dabathati, but broken. You see the hard, vicious, violent edges of the city where it seems like this crystal dug into the city and just sort of gouged it out as a way to protect it from the evaporation of the rest of the Godspine. You even see parts of like where sewage pipes have been cut in half and continue to just sort of like spit water out like one end of like a half pipe now from where the wall meets concrete and steel piping. You also see that like some buildings have been completely bisected and like others are crumbled. There's like massive chunks of debris littering the street. Both the Night Watch and the Day Watch are out in like full numbers trying to help people like erect, I think, like triage tents, as well as like emergency housing. And it almost seems like Dabathati has like took like 2 steps forward during the cataclysm after the initial events and have now taken 5 steps backward, because this almost feels like you've been plunged back into Dabathati right at the maw of the first cataclysm itself. And you see all these people who have like old wounds from the initial cataclysm with like fresh broken arms and whatnot. And like this definitely seems like a city broken, risen, and then broken again. Like that's sort of the aura that hangs over this capital. And I think Sybil leads the two of you to a shop that is very much a front for the entrance into one of the Aurochs Guild's many underground headquarters. It's this sort of like little fruit stand that's been set up, and like a back room you're able to like go down into like through like a manhole cover and like go down some steps. And you navigate through these twisting, turning, dark tunnels until Sybil leads the two of you to a rather familiar looking, like playpen, for lack of a better term, right? But here, like, it's been completely cleared out. It is empty. You see the remnants of luxury and hedonism, right? Like there's still a little bit of like incense and smoke hanging toward the ceiling. You see these like lush animal print rugs all over the place, these like things to drink, things to smoke, things to eat, just scattered everywhere, but there are no servants here. There aren't even any like exotic pets that Sybil is known for. There are some like empty cages and empty chains and shackles that seem to have been broken or released willingly, but it's just you and it's just Sybil. And they lead you in, almost kind of soberly, over to this like low table around which there are several cushions arranged, and they sort of kneel down onto it, and it's just like the 4 of you here in this space. Dabathati is, unwell. When the evaporation occurred, old Mama Lightning, Captain Dovrenye Litso, she did everything she could to save our home. And it, took something from her. More than something. It took... The Aurochs is dead. She emerged from her cavern from behind the whispering waterfall when old Mama Lightning was failing. She spent every last iota of her magic to keep this place alive. Her body now rests in that cave. And Captain Litso, she's dying. The combined power of the Aurochs and the Paragon of Dabathati was enough to save Dabathati, but it took so much from them, and I don't know what to do. And in that moment, Sybil knelt there on that cushion, looking at you, Sitlali, almost plaintively. You see, the leader of a massive crime ring, but you also see a person whose foundational confidence and worldview has been completely shaken. It's cracked them open into something uncertain and vulnerable and soft that they've never allowed themselves to feel.
Sitlali reaches out and puts their hand on top of Sybil's. I don't know if you and the Aurochs were personally close, but my condolences, if either way. We, and I think they kind of look to Gentle, we came to appeal for your aid, but it seems that first you might need a bit of ours, which we are happy to give, right, Gentle?
In the wake of hearing everything, Gentle has softened. Sybil's still a person, and Gentle is more than ready to help despite personal feelings.
You help me, even after everything I've done to your bud, everything I've... And Sybil sort of looks off to the side to see Bud, who has, I think, trotted over next to them and has sat down and is looking up at Sybil with those bright black eyes and that big wet black nose. And Sybil reaches out a blood red hand tentatively, and then Bud closes the gap and nuzzles the top of his head into the hand, and Sybil tentatively pets Bud on top of Bud's head, and a look of softness bleeds across Sybil's face in that moment. You see just a person who's enjoying petting a dog, right? Not a person who's trying to conquer this dog to make them into a killer or use this dire wolf as their next big showpiece, but just a person who feels unsure being comforted by the presence of an animal. And Sybil pets this dog, pets Bud. And we see another expression crack across their face. It's an expression of relief. They're genuinely relieved and happy to see Bud safe. You have taken care of them, haven't you, Gentle? I don't know, Sitlali. I don't know if there's anything worthwhile here. And they lift up that black tinged hand and place it over their chest to help.
I think at everything, Gentle, sort of, once again, still softer expression, smiled a little, I think hopefully. Despite everything, Sybil, you're still a person, and there's still people here, and they need help, and personal feelings don't matter in the way of that. You get that.
Huh.
I suppose all it really takes is the world literally ending for me to reevaluate my position here. If the two of you can get someone like me to try to change, to accept your help, then maybe, just maybe, you can get her to change too. Old Mama Lightning, she is as unwell as Dabathati. After the death of her mother, she's barely holding on.
We'll do what we can. And I mean, not for anything. I do have a tendency of helping Dabathati with a couple of words, so.
The Speaker of Dabathati, that's what they're calling you now. I hope you know that, Gentle. The Masked Hero. I thought it was a load of bullshit, but now, looking at you, perhaps I was wrong. Sitlali, I have regrets. I have so many regrets. About my station, my path in life, about...
And they reach their hand away from Bud's head and almost like hold it across the table toward you.
Us. I don't want this journey of hours of life to end with all these heavy black stones in my heart weighing it down. I greeted you at the black gates of Dabathati because I want Old Mama Lightning to come through this on the other end. We need her. I don't know who I am. I don't know what the Aurochs Guild is without her. And I see now, plain as Galtanger's light, she needs the two of you.
Sybil, do you remember when we met? Temerity Bright extraordinaire?
How could I forget?
Do you see how much has changed in me since then?
Sybil cocks their head to the side, and for the first time in a really long time, Sitlali, perhaps even ever, they look at you. Like they really look at you. Not just at your hair, your curves, your smile, but at you. And you get the sense that they're really trying to see you. I'm scared, Sitlali. I'm scared to recognize you because it feels so far away from anything I could ever become.
And they reach out and take Sybil's hand. Just because it took you until the end of the world to realize that you needed to change doesn't mean it's too late.
Well, consider me speechless.
Sitlali's gonna lean in for a kiss if Sybil will allow it.
Sybil blinks, and you see like their eyes are wet, and shining, but the tears haven't spilled yet. And they almost seem unsure. Like a former Sybil would have definitely closed the gap and just kissed you, right? But this Sybil is like, the kiss doesn't seem to be coming from lust. It's not coming just from attraction or just from like a whirlwind romance. It's coming from a place that's a lot deeper and more genuine than anything they've ever touched before. And they're fearful of that. But then Bud nudges their hip forward and they sort of fall into the kiss. And they reach out their hand and like cup sort of like the back of your waist and like hold it there firmly. And then they let go.
Anyway, thank you for being here, Gentle. It is a pleasure to have you here as always. And truly, I do appreciate your presence here. If anyone can bring hope back into Captain Lito's heart, it's you, Gentle. Hero of Dabathati.
Do what I can. And honestly, when we're through with all of this, we'll have to have a talk anyway, especially for Bud's sake.
Yes. For Bud.
And she sort of like scratches that spot on Bud's head where you scratch him whenever he's feeling like any type of way. Like Sybil also intuitively knows where to get him good, and like Bud sort of like nuzzles into Sybil's touch. And on that, if the two of you are ready, perhaps it's time to talk to the paragon of Dabathati herself. The cavern is how the two of you remember it. The last time you were in Dabathati, when you encountered the Aurochs. A massive, huge vestibule, an arching chamber, a gushing, pounding waterfall in the back that flows into a natural stream that trickles out of sight. But here, sort of at the edge of this shoreline, there's something that was certainly not there before. A massive form, spherical, round, but over it is draped a white sheet. And you get the sense that this is, of course, the body of the Aurochs herself. And kneeling in front of it, you see almost like a little grain of rice, a little dot from your perspective at the back of this chamber. Old Mama Lightning. She's just kneeling there. You see semblances of an altar, votive candles, offerings of gems and fruits, dried herbs and trinkets, silver, bronze, raw ores and minerals. And in the middle of it all, the Aurochs' daughter. Small, hunched over, wrinkled, staring at the body of her mother. Just like Sybil's den, this space is empty. There's no one in here. Not even like the usual 20, 30, 40 guards that she would have in this space at a given time. It's just completely empty. Sybil had led you past a retinue of guards toward this corridor and now opens into a chamber. But it's just the two of you, Bud and Sybil, at the mouth of this waterfall den. And Sybil nods at the two of you and sort of leans back and stays in the shadows. And like across the way, across these craggy crenellations, past these little nooks built into the walls, filled with all sorts of artifacts and statues and gems and weapons and magical items, Old Mama Lightning knelt on the floor, her back to the two of you, keeps her chin lowered, but her voice echoes across the chamber as soon as she senses you. Sybil, Sybil, Sybil. Didn't I say no guests? What do the two of you want? I've left the Alliance. Hasn't Dabathati given your cause enough?
I think first of all, I just want to offer my condolences, and if there's anything I can provide in terms of food just to help. And second, we just want to talk.
Talk. A talk isn't going to bring her back. A talk isn't going to bring the mountains back. It's not going to refill the salt flats with Hema and Sigirni. So talk, speaker of Dabathati, and see what wounds your words can mend.
The first thing Gentle does is tries to feel for a thread between Old Mama Lightning and Dabathati, almost as a concept, as like a place, as a people, and feels that thread is still strong.
Okay, yeah. Let's have this be your war effort roll. So I'll let you make either an Arcana check, an Insight check, or a Religion check.
Okay. I have a follow-up question. Would my thread of possibility thing be able to be used here to make that a bit stronger?
You know what? Yes. Yes, it would. Why don't you just read out what thread of possibility does, and we'll resolve after that.
Gentle's keeper power is called Threads of Possibility. Once per long rest, Gentle can describe a course of action they or someone else might take, and it views as God Shard will reveal clear visions about the outcome of that action. When Gentle is done pulling this thread, they gain a +10 to the next skill check they make to pursue that course of action.
So let's say that the check you make gets a +10.
Beautiful.
So let's interpret it that way, yeah.
Okay, so that's 12 plus a 21. Makes that a 33.
Noted. Okay. Gentle. Noted. Gentle. As you sort of move forward and focus on Old Mama Lightning, everything else sort of falls away, sort of turns grayscale, sort of blurs at the edges, and it's just this woman hunched in front of the body of her mother. And then you see it. A thread, like a spindle of red lightning, sort of jolts out of her back and connects her to the waterfall, and then another thread, a golden one, connects her to the walls, and then a black one comes out and shoots out like through the ceiling of this chamber and connects to the greater network of all those black crystalline walls around Dabathati now. And you get the sense that, yeah, Old Mama Lightning has massive stake in Dabathati as a place. This is her home. It's the place that she calls her own. It's the place she's sworn to protect, to govern in a lot of ways. She's intimately connected to it.
Captain, I don't necessarily know if this is the best thing to hear, but I know that your heart is still invested in Dabathati, and I know ultimately, as bad as everything seems, losing everything would be so much worse. And I want to know what I can do to help, what we can do to help, not just as an alliance, not just as keepers or paragons, but as people who care about you and care about this place as well.
Help. Help. And Old Mama Lightning finally turns sideways, one of her eyes sort of swiveling in its socket to look at the two of you. And it's the eye that has 3 different colors flashing in it. Dabathi's eye. In my entire life, Speaker of Dabathati, I have done a great many things. I have killed. I've threatened. I've maimed. I've destroyed. I've built. I have helped. I've blackmailed. I've coerced. I've stolen. I've risen to the top of the underbelly of all of Andake. But I have never, ever relied on someone else, except for my mother. And she slowly looks back toward this, like, cloth-draped corpse. And now she's gone. One of the main reasons I've never relied on anyone else is because I didn't need anyone else's help. I've always been the strongest. I've always been the most powerful. The one who was able to protect, create, destroy more than anyone else. There was only one person I considered stronger than myself. And now she's dead. And I am lost.
Captain, divided we are all smaller than the stranger. We are all nothing in the face of oblivion. You helped me once in the nothing plane. And Adam is dead. By my blade, for the record. We are so small compared to oblivion, which is why we need each other. All of us, we're something, at least. Isn't that better than being in the nothing plane for eternity? Do you remember before you had Vinash, how incomplete that felt? And I think Sitlali's wings kind of flare with like that red lightning, with that memory of Vinash when they met. Right now, your Vinash and the rest of the world are Suraksha and Thristy. So why don't you come back? And we stand together, and we live as one, or we die as one.
And the two of you see her laugh turn into a gnarling cough into her hand, and you both of you see like a bright spot of crimson in her hand as she pulls it close to her chest. Well, you two young ones. Maybe an old, bitter killer like myself doesn't deserve redemption. But maybe I do deserve the chance, at least one last time, to ask. And she finally turns around fully and looks at the two of you, and you see that she was hiding something. There are these red hot veins rippling up her neck that have completely consumed one side of her face. Like the force of channeling Vinosh is tearing her apart, right? And you also see black and gold veins striking through as well. Like she's used as much of her God Shard's power as she could bear to save Dabathati, and she's just hanging on. And she looks at the two of you and wobbles where she's kneeling and says, "Help me." And then she falls over.
I run over immediately.
Yeah. Sitlali is going to, I think, put her hands gently on the sides of Old Mama Lightning's face and cast Heal, which is an automatic 70 HP. It also ends blindness, deafness, and any diseases. If there are any diseases happening around, consumption perhaps.
Good to know. Sitlali, this is going to be your war effort roll. Make me a spell casting check. So like you're making like an attack with a spell.
Cool. 30.
Noted. So Sitlali, as your hands go over Old Mama Lightning, you see her like cloth-wrapped body. She's so small is sort of what you get. She's old and she's small, and in a lot of ways she's quite frail, and she needs your help. And I think as your hands go over her skin and you channel this like healing magic, we see those veins begin to recede back underneath the collar of her cloth shirt, right? But it does leave almost like these carved channels behind, like a dried up river, entangling themselves like roots in a riverbed with her wrinkles. And eventually, like, her eyelashes flutter and she takes in like a breath again. And when she opens her mismatched eyes, she's gazing up at you, Sitlali, as well as you, Gentle, and Bud, who's nearby. And then she like clasps the front of her shirt. And Sitlali, you get the sense that this weakness isn't completely removed, but you've definitely stabilized her, and she's not in like immediate threat of dying anymore. You know, a part of me, if you hadn't shown up, had resigned to just dying here next to her.
I know. But you're something, remember? You're not nothing.
Funny coming from you. I'm glad you've shaken off that name, Sitlali. Nothing never suited you. Glad to hear that fucker is dead, too. Tell me, was it everything you ever hoped for?
No.
That wasn't that perfect. And she like painfully pushes herself back to it like a stand, but she's holding on to you to help her do it. And she like picks up her cane from where it had dropped from where she was kneeling and uses that to stabilize herself as well.
And I think Sitlali is also using their cane to stabilize her. So it's just, you know, I cast Chain Cane.
Chain Cane! Somewhere off in the distance, Cane goes, hello? She pulls...
But in French.
Bonjour? I don't know. She pulls herself. Old Mama Lightning pulls herself like to like a fully upright sitting position and looks at the two of you evenly nodding. Fine. I'll help the Alliance again. but only as long as the two of you are still a part of it. Oh, right! Someone before this didn't get the memo that I'd fucked off from the Alliance, and they sent me this very silly invitation. And she reaches into her cloth armor and pulls out what I can only describe as an extremely homosexual RSVP, like a letter. It's embroidered, it's eggshell creamy parchment paper, it's weighted, it looks like really nice, right? And she actually just hands it over carelessly in the two of your direction, doesn't care which one of you takes it. This person, oh, thank you, gentle, says he'd be honored to offer up his land for the Alliance to use as, and I quote, the fabulous site of your magnificent final showdown. I have no idea what he's referring to, or even how he knows there will be a final showdown, but here. Make sure that gets to the Alliance. I can't carry this on my own. It's going to take me a few more days to get back to Camp Vanguard, but I will come when the call is sounded. And gentle, when you look down at the letter, you see that it is addressed from one Dabathati Saeed.
First, thank you once again for everything, and I promise, even after we save the world, I sort of have a project in the works, and Dabathati will be one of the first places we hit.
Ever hopeful, aren't you? Well, if we do end up thwarting Oblivion once and for all, you are more than welcome to start an organization here in Dabathati. Just know that all guild fees do pass through me.
Understandable.
And now, I would appreciate a little bit of privacy. I believe a certain insubordinate captain of mine might be able to put the two of you up for the rest of your stay here in Dabathati. Yes, of course, Captain Litzo. Good. I'll spare you your head this time, Sybil. But don't keep pushing your luck when it comes to disobeying my direct orders. Of course, my captain.
Sybil's very good at obeying when it suits them.
Oh, you. Okay, that's enough. I have final rights to give my mother, and if I'm not going to die here next to her, I suppose someone has to wash the body.
You don't have to do that alone if you don't want to.
Are you offering your services as a former priest of the Raven Queen?
I don't know if former is quite the word, but yes.
Then join me.
I'll help however I can.
We do need a witness. And I think for the rest of that time, you gently and very ritualistically remove the sheet to see the limp form of this massive beholder, right? This Aurochs. And together you and Old Mama Lightning wash and clean the body and give it its final rites, while Gentle and Bud stand vigil. And I think as we fade down on this scene, we're gonna open up on a balcony of a third or fourth story walk up, right in downtown Saraksha district. This is Sybil's personal private above ground digs, right? That Sitlali, you've spent many a fun romp here as, whenever you swing by Dabathati, right? But here I think we find you, Sitlali, and you, Gentle, and Bud just sort of lounging and sleeping curled up nearby on Sybil's private balcony. It overlooks what used to be a beautiful vista of the market square, but now storefront windows are caved in, glass and debris litter every block of the street, and just the distant sound of crying and occasionally sobbing and screaming and low explosions muffle the air. But up here, looking down over the city, with Sybil somewhere inside, making some sort of dessert, and the two of you together with Bud, it almost feels like maybe things will eventually be okay. Everything's so uncertain, and the sky beyond the black glass is still red and full of eyes, but you have Sybil now, and you have Old Mama Lightning. What did the two of you do on this balcony?
I think Sitlali is leaned back against a pile of cushions, very like, Sybil. They're very plush and expensive. And she just kind of looks over at Gentle. How are you doing, honestly?
Gentle takes an extended second to really check in with themselves. Despite everything, I'm doing okay. Stuff like this, knowing that even with the sky being completely red and the world about to end, knowing that I'm able to go to different places and help people find a little bit more hope is, I think, everything I could ask to do. And I appreciate you being here for all of this, and I couldn't have done this without you. So I'm okay. How are you?
I mean, it's the end of the fucking world. But somehow I'm doing a little better, which is weird, but good.
I think I settle a little closer. Even at the end of the world, even when things look as bleak as they have been, I think moments like these are really important. Little moments of beauty and peace, and even a bit of a victory.
It was a bit of a victory today, huh?
Yeah. I can't think of a way it could have went better. I'm proud of you.
What?
I remember how much of the mask you used to wear back when all of this happened, a year ago? And you've grown so much.
Thank you. But look who's talking. The person who used to wear the literal mask. Mixed Speaker of Dabathati.
That's such a title.
It is such a title. It's your title.
It's weird to have that much recognition. But I'm also glad with how far I've come, and I wouldn't have been half as far as I got without knowing you and having you in my life. And thank you. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, Gentle.
I've also been looking at your letters a bit, especially with everything happening. Moonbeam, by the way, very cute.
I mean, is it cute considering we don't have a moon and I only know what a moon is because a man from Ohio explained it to me before he threw me into the nothing plane? I don't know.
You don't have to squash it. It's still, I like it.
You do?
Of course. And I've been thinking about the conversation we had a while back. And I like you.
What?
Gentle sidles a little closer. I like you a lot, Sitlali.
Like as coworkers, or like as friends, or like...
Gentle doesn't say anything but gives you a very knowing look.
And I think Sitlali is just getting progressively redder and starts to get red and then like catches it and then like goes back to their normal skin tone and then like starts to get red again and then goes back to their normal skin tone.
Remember that question you asked me a while back?
I ask a lot of questions. Gentle, you're gonna have to be more specific.
The one where you asked if you could kiss me.
I do remember that question. Yes.
Well, I have a pretty solid answer.
Oh.
Yes.
And they do. And I think against, whatever amount of self-control Sitlali possesses, the weave around them starts to vibrate intensely, and fireworks go off. As like thaumaturgy fires without them casting it.
That's really cute.
I don't have control of it, and I'm paladin of the weave. Come here, and they kiss you again.
And I think on that, we close down on the scene on the balcony. And we are going to go to a different scene now. Fireroot Farm is a 50-acre cactus and vegetable farm owned by Dabathati Saeed, situated on the edge of a rocky cliffside that overlooks what used to be the Boundary Waters. But now, it is a vast, sweeping expanse of parched earth stretching toward the muddy shores of the court to the far west. The Boundary Flats, as they're now known, are now a cousin to the rugged plateaus and arid soil of the Badlands. Here, nothing but prickly shrubs seem to grow, but Fireroot Farm is the exception. Cacti, onions, carrots, leeks, garlic, peas, and beets rake the horizon before you. Their verdant stalks are white and red with dust, bulbs hanging low under the weight of burgeoning apocalypse. In the near distance, a handsome farmhouse rises toward the crimson heaven, and across a fallow field, we see Dabathati Saeed himself, a pink tiefling with corkscrew horns. His jaw is smooth, he's shaved his goatee, and his denim apron is stained with dust. Alongside his husband Cathor, a handsome, dark-skinned elf in a wheelchair, Dabathati is busy building a massive structure. In fact, the air quivers with magic as these husbands pull pylons upright, nail wooden boards, lay down carpet, and otherwise appear to be assembling a stage. We're now gonna push past Dabathati and Cathor to find Vasanti, Voska, and Geron. The three of you have arrived at Dabathati's a day before the concert for the end of the world. We find the three of you nearby, surrounded by cacti, ferns, and carrots. Why don't you tell me, what are the three of you up to?
I think Geron walks up towards where maybe Voska and Vasanti have been talking, like arms full of like weird little contraptions, and just kind of goes up. Voska, I think, why exactly did we need 2 tons of fireworks again?
Because after Kane's opening, in which he frolics forward with the chained empty beasts, there will be a sequenced release of fireworks, including but not limited to from the western corner all the way to the eastern.
Yeah, I don't about those chained the empty beasts again. Are we sure that that's such a great idea? I mean, I know that we think that we can control them, but I don't want to risk that again.
I believe that they are subdued, but if you are incredibly concerned, I can have a chat with Kane to see that perhaps we instead have them dealt with and parade them instead. Either way, it's the same effect.
And John kind of like shifts the fireworks in their arms. I just think that we have to be careful. I mean, the empty beasts have been getting more and more powerful as we travel.
Either way, I'll be sharing the stage with Kane as well, and I think between the both of us, if there is a momentary need for us to deal with all of the empty beasts before anything goes wrong, I believe the two of us could do so.
Okay, Vasanti, here, hold these, please.
And Vasanti takes. I don't know why we need fireworks when I can just, start shooting fireballs into the sky. That's just as safe.
They were Kane's insistence.
Fine. But we got the platforms, right? Like, we're gonna have, for my idea, we're gonna have, like, little platforms around the stage, like, up high, so,
Voska looks at you with this bright smile, and she says, "You can have any platform you like, just make sure you get there before Kane does."
Trust me, don't worry about it. And I think Vasanti also, like, takes a moment to sort of look back at the actual farm set and sees the little cactus now a year older that she initially tripped on and almost face planted into, and she just like smiles a little bit, and she sort of like goes off to like thinking about where she's going to be standing on that stage to do whatever she has planned to do during the concert.
I think while Vasanti is just getting ready for the positioning that she's about to position themselves on, I think Voska is looking at a plan of just the overlay of how the performance is going to go, the concert where everyone's meant to be standing, and she's practicing with Parable. Just while she's looking at the plan, just almost like she is minutely practicing her movements that she's going to do upon her performance, but looking and adjusting all of the things. It is incredibly detail oriented. She's a little bit micromanaging a little bit on everyone's movements. I think there might have been a new addition to the movement by Kane, which she very, very calmly, she doesn't erase it necessarily, but she turns the arrow to a different to like a curved direction, so it's curved a little bit so that everything flows on a lot more smoother.
Voska, as you're practicing with Parable and swinging it boom, 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 through the air, doing your micro-managerial work, actually, I think you feel a presence emanating off of Vasanti. As you weave Parable through the air, right? Parable is empowered with your own latent soul magic. And you sense, as a soul magician, something brimming off of the edges of Vasanti's.
I think while she feels that, like, the ping happens as she's swinging Parable like an incense censer, and she stops. She goes, "Vasanti, come back here for a moment."
I swear I didn't do anything with the fireworks. They're perfectly, they're fixed. They're fine.
She looks at you for momentary disbelief, and she says, "We'll deal with that matter in a moment. Is the pinging still continuing now that Vasanti's closer to me?"
Oh yeah, you feel it. It's almost like heat coming off of a stove or a furnace. It's just sort of a latent energy just kind of vamping off of her shoulders.
May I take a look at you, Vasanti?
Sure?
Allow me to explain. Parable is peeking up on some latent soul magic and soul energy. I would like to observe what that means, if that is okay.
Sure. I don't really know anything about soul magic, so, I'll just... Okay, whatever you say.
I assure you, it will not hurt. You might feel some light tingling and sensation. If you feel any discomfort at all, please let me know. And she begins, like, swinging Parable like an incense censer all around, like walking around you, Vasanti, before, as she swings, it like hoops off of her elbow onto her wrist and then into her hand, the actual arrow dart, as she pulls onto your soul magic and begins to weave and observe it. Do I need to make a roll?
Yeah, let's say this is your war effort roll, Voska. So make me Arcana, Religion, or History. I'll let you choose.
Okay, so that is a natural 15 plus 14, so 29?
Noted.
I hate it when you say it like that.
As you swing a circle with Parable around Vasanti, you get a uncomfortable is an understatement. A sensation, almost like if a limb falls asleep and that staticky, fuzzy feeling just immediately sinks over your entire body from head to toe, like jolting through your gums, through your teeth, through your nerves. Every single marrow, every single blood cell just starts to vibrate kind of discomfortingly, but it doesn't hurt exactly. It's just a very odd sensation. And Voska, you see like a humanoid kind of silhouette or a presence begin to drift up off the edges of Vasanti's soul and almost seem to envelop her. And you've seen this before as a spirit medium. It's when presences of other entities or beings cling or anchor themselves onto living mortals. This is some sort of soul, or the ghost of a soul, or the echo of a ghost of a soul holding on to Vasanti, and something that strikes you is that it feels very familiar. It's not like Vasanti from a past life or from a future life or anything like that, but it does feel like related intimately by blood to Vasanti in some way.
So in my professional opinion, is this something necessarily to be concerned about, or is there a way for me to like discern further maybe the nature of the relationship?
With your 29, as you focus on it more, the silhouette seems to harden and crystallize around Vasanti, and you see a form that is quite large, actually looming over her. It makes you think for a split second of a bhikkhu, how like big a bhikkhu is. This figure is maybe like 8, 9, maybe even 10 feet tall, like a broad-shouldered woman with a kind of proud stature, the outline of hair that looks kind of similar to Vasanti's, and smells of Titanic magic.
I think Voska is after like pulling the thread of your soul energy, Vasanti, she's like moving around. It's almost like when you are wrapping like a scarf around someone and she's just moving around you. And she says, I am noticing a Titanic presence about you. I must admit that I'm new to this sort of influence. A bhikkhu was my first example of this. But there is a presence clinging over the essence of your soul. Are you aware of this, Vasanti?
When I was in Jukai recently with the bhikkhu, I tried to shift into draconic mage form. I don't know how familiar you are with that magic, but apparently the Titans used to be able to transform into 2 different forms depending on which school of Titanic magic they went on. And when I tried, I saw someone who looked a lot like me, and many others actually, briefly, just ever so briefly. I don't know much or anything at all about soul magic whatsoever, but I think, based on what my father told me of an aunt I had, that what I saw in Jukai the other day could have been her. It looked like someone very similar to me, and maybe this is because I've been trying to stir up this Titan magic in me. Maybe I'm starting to connect with that ancestry now. Maybe it's something I'm, like you said, coming into, as opposed to whoever I was beforehand, or maybe I've always had it and I just didn't realize it.
I am no expert on Titanic magic myself. I only know within the realms and energies of soul magic.
And Voska, with your 29, you can see this form starting to destabilize even as you're swinging parable, and it's like it dissipates. Like you can't hold it for super long. You were only able to conjure it and see it for maybe a couple of moments before it goes back into invisibility. But it's still there. It's still lingering around Vasanti, but your ability to draw it out like an image from paint is tenuous. You do know, however, you've made that initial connection, though. And even as like the swinging of parable sort of slows down, you feel the heavy weight of that Titanic ancestry still sifting in the air around you, commingling with the lambent white and crimson dust all around you. And you get the sense that if you just focused a little bit harder, if you attuned your energy, if you turned it into a spear and drilled down into Vasanti's soul, you might be able to open up a door for Vasanti to commune with this particular spirit.
Connie, how dare you?
Just dangling some bait there for
How
our
dare you do this to
dangling
me?
some soul bait.
How dare you do this to me after what happened?
I think as this realization is starting to settle in, and this ambient soul magic continues to wrap around this fallow field upon which the four of you are setting up fireworks, Voska, your attention drifts sideways to another, let's say, spiritual anomaly in the group. Duran. Ever since you've patched up, all of you rather, have helped form that barrier over the hole in Duran's chest, the entropic field within their soul has stopped metastasizing, but it hasn't gotten smaller. You've just sort of contained it. And now that you're kind of activated and your ears are open right now, so to speak, for any sort of spiritual activity, you can feel like that roiling, crackling, vacuous, sparking noise of empty magic just going, even underneath the surface of that barrier you've helped stitch together. And you get the sense that there's something else going on down there.
I think you see Voska, like, initially, as she's swinging Parable, you kind of see Parable swinging against the thread of Asanti's magic, and that's when she clocks that she can probe a little deeper. And then Parable just stops, stock still in her hand, no longer dangling. And her eye, her glazed over, like, foggy white eye, looks over at Duran as she hears this, almost like a dripping in her head, echoing. And she says, Vasanti, I might have more to provide you if it comes to your soul magics and energies and ancestry. I think we could certainly work together. But then, and she, as she keeps trying to, like, pursue that thought of, like, let's drill into the ancestral soul magics, it's like she keeps getting distracted with the crackling and roiling that's coming from Duran, and it's this loud sound, and she just stops herself. Duran, I would like to give you a soul exam.
I think Duran has just been kind of like standing here, like nodding very intently at the conversation, just like listening to it. A little bit worried for Vasanti because hearing that she had tried to turn into a draconic mage, presumably did not succeed, is kind of worrying for him. But as soon as Vasa kind of like turns her attention to them, they like stop and they furrow their brow. I suppose if you want to.
It has been a moment since our collective intervention upon the empty and mother's blood consuming upon your life force. I have only just realized that I hadn't given you a checkup since. Would you allow me?
Sure. Is there something that I need to be worried about? I don't think that it's leaking or anything.
It is very loud. Please have a seat. And I think very in stark contrast to how she was examining Vasanti, where it was more of a doctor's visit with Vasanti, where it was like, please have a seat. Do you let me do this? This is okay. You feel a little pressure here. You sit down. And she immediately walks over and just says, you might feel some discomfort, and like swings Parable wrapping around her wrist, and the arrowhead is now in her hand, and pulls. Because it's like so loud that she needs to know the answer right now.
Duran, for your war effort roll, I'll give you a choice. You can make a con save. You can make a charisma, a performance check, I guess, to sort of ground yourself, or an insight check on yourself.
They are all the same. So I guess I will just, they're literally all the same modifier, and it's not great. So I guess I'll do a con save. Please save me. It's still only a 19.
Okay, that's not bad. Walk it off. Noted. Voska, as you swing Parable in Duran's direction, sure enough, you feel it. And Duran, as Voska examines you, pain twitches in the depths of your soul, a pain that had been very much, thankfully, fortunately, muted and muffled by your friend's intervention, but it's like peeling back a scab and prodding a lancet deep into the unhealed wound. That's kind of how it feels, even as Voska's digging around to examine it. But thankfully, this examination does yield very important information. Voska, everything else sort of turns grayscale, and it's just sort of Duran here in front of you, that black, seething mass of void bubbling and frothing in the center of their chest, and you see it. Minuscule, almost microscopic tendrils of mother's blood is leaching into Duran's bloodstream, as well as the soul magic that infuses their entire body and what makes them up as a person. In other words, even though Mother's blessing has been contained, even in its current state, without very soon and very intense, probably divine intervention, Duran will turn into an empty beast.
I think, Duran, you feel a discomfort, and that discomfort quickly turns into sharp pain, like a healer prying a wound taut against skin and analyzing it deeply. You feel that pressure
Voska.
from her. And I think this is like her tone is reminiscent of Arc 7 as she prod into another individual, and she says, "Just bear with me for a moment." And she
Just
peers
be quick
closer.
about it, please.
She peers a little closer, notices all of that, and then kind of like pulls away, but still kind of like as if she is highlighting like computer enhance onto it. So she is showing a thread of Duran's soul energy and the color of Duran's soul energy. She's pulling another thread, and like maybe down the thread there is like the tiniest mark of Mother's blessing.
Yeah, it's like a DNA strand that you're pulling out, like a magical DNA strand, and it's mostly Duran, but as it goes on, you see something else that's black and red coiling around it.
And as she's holding it taut against you, like in front of you, Duran, she says, "Tell me, what do you see?"
It's, I'm not that familiar with soul magic, but I think that looks like, I assume it's me. And, wait, what's that? The dark bit.
That, my dear Duran, is unfortunately the contained Mother's blessing.
No, that can't be right. You all sealed it off, right? It was supposed to be, it's here.
She like pulls it, like that tiny little piece, just to hold it up to your face. We succeeded, you're correct. We contained it. It is all but a minute band-aid. Just not too dissimilar. And you see her about to chuckle, like wryly, but she glitches. Similar to Oka's soul situation, it is but a temporary measure. This is not a wound I can heal, Duran.
If it's like Oka's, then then you can. You must be able to. You did it for them, right?
It was a temporary measure until Sen dived in like a shark into a feeding tank and ripped sutures apart.
So what are you saying?
You're not a paragon, and you are in significant danger, and only similar to Oka. The intervention of the divine can save you now.
And I think Duran's eyes kind of like move over to Vasanthi. and he looks over at her and just kind of like can probably, I think, like still sense and feel like Scott and Nectis kind of like moving and flowing inside of her. Fuck.
And before all three of your eyes, as Voska's holding up Duran's soul strand, as Duran's attention goes to Vasanti, we see a part of the strand branch off and leap toward Vasanti, sort of like a branch splitting in two, and it sort of shoots through the air and like almost seems to connect to Vasanti's soul as a way of tugging your attention, Voska, of your analysis over to another factor that you had overlooked initially. And you see it now, Voska. Nip uses threads, right? Connecting Duran and Vasanti, but this isn't just a bond of friendship. There's something deeper here. You see purple and red strands binding their bond of friendship together. Scott and Nectis's connection. And you see that string of mother's blood also winding its way up through that strand and connecting Duran's fate with Vasanti's. In other words, if Duran turns, so does she. And on that, evening closes in. Before we fully end that scene, Vasanti, I want you to make your war effort roll too. I'll let you choose. If you want it to be about feeling that ancestral connection to Aunt Vasanti, it'll be one roll. If you want it to be about your fate, it will be another. Tell me what you're interested in.
Oh gosh, let's go with fate.
Can I give bardic inspiration?
You can. Yeah, I am allowing all sorts of bonuses and modifiers to these
Have
rolls. Yes.
mine as well. Have mine as well.
Please take my bardic inspiration.
So it's fate, then I'll just make it a gay charisma check. So just add your charisma modifier and nothing else. As well as the 2 bardic inspos, so a d6 and a d12.
6 and a d12. Okay. Does a 38 hit?
Let's fucking go.
Noted. 38 has been noted.
Okay, Connie. Noted.
Note that, Connie.
Note that.
I'm writing it down. All right. And on that, evening is gonna close in. The bright crimson of the day fades into deep imperial red. It's easy to lose track of hours in the apocalypse. All those flashing eyes, those gleaming pillars of destructive rays jolting the mind and addling the brain. And yet, through the frosted window of Dabathati's farmhouse, we witness the sky change decidedly to a deeper, darker shade of blood red. We pull back from this window to find a vast living room complete with lush rugs, a crackling fireplace, a chandelier. A ramp coils up the edges of the walls to a grand balcony level. And this farmhouse is filled with the smell of warm, home-cooked food and the mirthful babble of many different friendly voices. Oka, Dewey, Vasanti, Voska, Gentle, Sitlali, Duran, and Abiku, we find the 8 of you lounging on couches, sitting in chairs, sitting cross-legged on cushions and rugs, nursing tea and drinks and little plates of delectable entrees. And over the course of this night, other friends and loved ones drift in and out of the space. At some point, we see Squeak dropping in, Shrini's definitely here, Wu Ming, Mercy, Kane, even other Alliance members like Root Sweetbreeze, Elder Pohaku at some point, and also at some point, Toktoa Kagan. And all of you find that dinner just kind of springs spontaneously outward from this gathering, and you find yourselves soon on the receiving end of a toast. From none other than Dabathati Saeed himself, the host and patron of this particular farmhouse. He's standing in the center of the room holding court, raising a glass to the ceiling. And I think this is the scene we come in on. Everyone, and he's ding, 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 like tapping a knife against the glass, like so loud that it rings out kind of annoyingly over the space. Everyone, please, can I have your attention? Thank you. Well, I just wanted to say a few words. You know, this is the night before the concert for the end of the world. Is that the official name of the concert? Can we change it at this point? Is that Voska, Kane? Are you taking suggestions?
I think Voska looks over at Kane just to see if Kane has any burning suggestions before she offers an alternative.
Kane is sitting in Oka and Duran's lap. Like they're sort of like splayed horizontally and they're like eating like a mini cupcake, I think. And their like tail keeps slapping Duran in the face. And as they lounge very sluttily, might I say, looking up at Dabathati from the floor, they go, "That name is indeed set in stone, darling. Concert for the end of the world. I mean, you can't get more grand than that." Well, I was thinking something like Paragonsert.
Paragonsert, the concert for the end of the world, has an excellent ring to it.
No puns. Voska, did you not read the dramaturgy notes I gave you?
I read it, but it has a nice ring to it, Paragonsert.
Then it's decided. Paragonsert, the concert for the end of the world. Even as Kane like groans and throws their like eyes back in their head and mutters something about it being super, super cringy. Dabathati smiles, clears his throat, absently rubs the now smooths patch where their goatee used to be, and then like before remembering that the goatee isn't there anymore and goes, right, yes, anyway, well, it was just a little over a year ago at this point that 4 of you stumbled into my farmstead. And, wow, so much has changed since then. I mean, the world has ended. I've met the rest of you. I shaved my goatee. Kathor and I closed down our thriving small business here so we could, lend a hand to the war effort. And I just want to say that this is what we're fighting for, right? And he like gestures at this room with all of you sitting in it and hanging out and laughing and smiling. This isn't Dake, right? It's us. The stranger could take the Godspine. They could take the human at Sigurni Sea. But this, Oblivion can't take that away from us. I thought of a similar thing when I first met Dr. Eluso. At this point, like a year and a half ago, remember I was telling you all about how all my tales, all my exploits of being an incredible adventurer, those were actually stories I took from Dr. Eluso. Well, I did visit the woman at her homestead, may it rest in peace, before it was blown up, disintegrated by that huge I-beam. I visited her to, get a first-hand account of all the stories that I would later, pass off as my own. But, no harm, no foul. And it was actually during that conversation that, Oblivion did threaten me, but I guess she didn't really see me as worthy of being disintegrated like the homestead was by aforementioned I-beam.
I'm sorry. What?
You met...
Yes?
Wait, why didn't you tell... I'm sorry, I've never met you. What?
Well, yes, I thought, and like Dabathati looked kind of off at Kathor, who's also like sitting there like looking a little befuddled. I thought everyone knew. Well, when I visited Dr. Eluso like a year and a half ago, it must have been when they were on the verge of learning who they really were, because, their face didn't change, but it did change when I was asking them a bunch of questions. And while we were going over the stories of their exploits together, they seemed to be putting some things together. Yeah, I put up a literal conspiracy board and I was joining things together with strings. And I was like, well, if the stories of you rescuing this family of Bulettes from 50 years ago is true, then ba-da-da-da-da-da, and they were starting to piece it all together. And then I met Oblivion, and she was very, very scary. And she said that if I told anyone, she would obliterate me on the spot. But she let me go.
And you didn't think that was maybe important information to tell us before you sent us to visit Dr. Hitsagatiluso?
Well, Oblivion said she'd obliterate me if I did, so I don't know what you want from me, Oka.
I mean, the world is literally ending.
What? But that's not on me.
The temperature of the room drops 5 degrees.
Kathor, can you fiddle with the thermostat, love?
I am sorry. Again, I have not. My name is Zabiku. So you thought that your safety was more important than telling us maybe the world could end because of our friend?
Well, I didn't even know you existed until like 3 days ago, Abiku Ishtar,
That's
first
fair.
of all.
That's
right?
it, but what about
right?
them? And points to Oka and Vasanti.
Well, after Oblivion retreated back into Dr. Eluso's subconscious and they sort of reset, I figured I'd let the man breathe, and
Wait, did you tell Dr. Eluso?
Would know. Well, if I told Dr. Eluso
that was important.
Well, they just hard reset themselves again. I mean, it'd be sort of like pressing, restart on one of those URL machines. I don't see how I'm the
their
bad
head
guy.
in their hands, and just buries their face in the back of Kane's hair.
Lord Saeed,
Yes?
allow me to confirm that this is indeed the sequence of events. You pieced together histories with Dr. Hitzakaten Eluso, followed by spending time actually piecing together that perhaps they have been around longer than they might have realized.
Yes, and then they turned into Oblivion during that same conversation. I don't really know how to describe it. There's just and they sort of mimic a circular motion over their head and make a boom noise, and they draw their champagne flute like down their body and back up it again, and then they were different.
And you told no soul for a year and a half.
I would have been obliterated. What? Little birdies tell me that a certain Dr. Ting, back when the four of you were off gallivanting in the court, and Rev just goes, like, from next to Vasanti, careful, Dabathati. Well, no, this is going somewhere. I promise. I hear from a little birdie that when Dr. Ting tried to come clean, he fucking unzipped. So, can you blame me?
But you didn't know that then. You heard that well after the fact.
That doesn't matter.
You sent us into a trap, essentially. This is what I hear from it is, oh yeah, I knew I was sending you to a trap, but it's okay, because I'm okay.
Well, you all were safe as long as you didn't figure it out again. Anyway, glasses up of juice and whatever other teas and beverages you might have. Good health to Endake. Our world is worth fighting for.
That was a bad speech.
I agree with Ibiku. That was basically the worst speech I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, Vasanti
Cheers.
does not raise a glass at all.
Dabathati sits back down.
Drum downs their entire drink in one go.
Voska slides her drink over to Oka and gives them the biggest approval. To like, there's a look in her eye that I think Oka would recognize as, do whatever the fuck you want, because you are absolutely entitled to do so, and I will not stop you.
I think Oka takes the glass, really seriously considers it dumping over Dabathati, but then actually just slides it down the table at Jiran again.
They down that one in one go as well.
And I think at this point it's actually Toktoa actually sort of pushes off against the wall she's been leaning against, and she's been nursing like some sort of like very refined drink this entire time. She clears her throat and says, everyone, excuse me. I really don't know how to follow that, but I have some better news than what Dabathati just wrought upon us. My paragon, Cardew Quirk, has been hard at work on the second iteration of the God Jar, and I think you have some physical proof to share with everyone now, don't you?
I do. It is not jars. And Dewey hurriedly goes into his bag and pulls out a handful of what looks like just like various jewelry, detritus, just chains and clasps everywhere, and it's all a tangled mess. And he realizes this looks bad, and he starts trying to untangle everything. And he's like, "It's not a jar this time. They are sort of like the chisels that we talked about earlier. There's pairs of them. There's two of. Aha! Here we go." And he finally manages to free like two matching pieces. And there's like varying things in this pile of jewelry. There's like earrings. There are like cuff bracelets. There are little like filled glass bottle necklace pendants, but they all have the long rectangular chisel blade shape in common, with like the corners at one end beveled and the blade edge is narrow, but it's not like dangerous anymore. It's been sanded down. And there's like a small cutout in the center of each piece, hollow, but you know that it's brimming with like containment magic, and it is the magic that will. And Dewey's explaining this, and he's like, it's hopefully the magic that will tether your soul to your counterparts if and when things get dire. Of course, I still need like one last part, I can't do it without Forge, and Forge is currently not in my possession. But things are going well. Everything's going according to plan.
Hana steps up and looks very proud of you, Dewey, actually, as you present these new versions of the not god jars and says, we've actually come up with a name for this new iteration of the not god jar. Tanga and I thought of it last night, Dad, and we thought that maybe we could call them Pendants of Fate. You know, partly for Dusty.
I love that. Perfect. Yes, they're not all pendant, but yes, no, I love the name. Perfect.
And Tonga sort of leans behind Hana and sort of whispers in your ear, we can workshop the exact details later, but Hana came up with it.
Oh yeah, no, it's perfect. Fantastic name.
Here you go, everyone. And Hana and Tonga help you untangle the rest. I think Tonga pulls out a device that just magnetically separates them into perfect piles, detangles it in one fell swoop. And these two people pick up these piles and start giving them off to Paragon Keeper pairs, right? They go up to Gentle and Voska and hand you each a pendant. They go up to Abiku and Rev and hand you each a pendant. Sitlali and Oka and hand you each a pendant. Toktoa, Kagan, and Dewey, each a pendant, etc., etc., etc. I think until we reach Vasanti, Hana comes up to you and hands you your half of the Skada Nectis kind of duo jewelry. And I think Kane sort of gets up a little bit attentively from Oka and Jiran's lap and sort of gets up and stretches and just goes, oh yeah, well this doesn't pertain me because I'm not a caper or a paragon. I'm just going to double up on those spritzers over there. And they sort of wander off to the side. And Oka and Jiran, both of you see Vasanti being handed not just hers, but the other one for the keeper as well by Hana, and Hana sort of goes off.
I think Vasanti sort of looks and sheepishly and a little bit even sadly looks over to Jiran and Oka and just be as you know, the kid who wasn't allowed at the cool kid table just sitting by herself.
Vasanti, don't give me those puppy dog eyes. You know they always work on me. And Oka, I think, kind of shuffles over on the pillows and almost rolls and crawls over to Vasanti and kind of bumps her shoulder with their own. Looks up at her sideways. And there's this really deeply tired look on their face, but there's something a lot more hopeful about it the first time that they were here. And they look up at Vasanti. Kind of sad that you don't have someone to match with.
Yeah, it would be sure great if someone, became my keeper and I could share this with them. And I think also when Oka looks at Vasanti, it's I feel they both have a moment of looking at each other and seeing how much they've changed this past year. Of Vasanti, her hair is longer. She's got still the faint scars of almost being pulled apart and the different colors, and also seems a little bit tired. Yeah, I think they both just have that energy together as they're looking at each other.
Well, remember the first time we were here, technically, and we had to share a room, and I was so certain that you were going to go into my bag, steal all my things, and be gone in the morning?
Oh yeah, I was going to do that, but you all seemed very on edge about it, so I felt like it wasn't the time. I was going to do it eventually.
Oh, really? Really? Because I actually remember you falling asleep so fucking fast that I could hear you snore for a good hour before I fell asleep.
Look, I was tired, all right? Who was the one who dealt the final blow to those empty bees? It was
I am a goddess, she says. Look at you now.
Well, I'm half. I've got goddesses inside of me and gods. That's a big change.
Let me hold on to that for you until he's ready. They say that kind of lower and look at Jiran.
I think Vasanti's face has a sudden urge of you can tell she's holding back a little bit of happy tears, and she just looks in Oka's eyes and I've missed you so much these last few months when we've been apart.
I missed you too. But now, and they kind of take Vasanti's, twirl it around their finger, and then go to hook it up on one of the bottom rungs of the ribcage armor that they wear, so it almost like dangles off of their own bone. Now, we will never be apart. Yeah? Always come when you call? That kind of thing?
Always.
And on that, I think we pan to a different corner of the room where a Keeper Paragon pair are also having a conversation. And we pull in on the moment of Gentle and Voska receiving your pendants.
I think Voska offers Gentle to help tie your bracelet to your wrist, because it's hard to tie your own bracelet to your own wrist. And she kind of walks up towards you and she says, "Come, let me help." And just, if you allow her, begin tying the little threads to your wrist. And I think, like, both Voska's and Gentle's match. I'd like to think that they're, like, just several weavings of thread. And the attachment itself, where you're supposed to join it upon the wrist, is just 3 to 4 threads that you tie and weave and plaid together and tie it. And I think Voska's ties hers that to you in a similar knotting style of parable and ties it against your wrist.
Perfect. Do you need me to help you with yours too?
Please. And holds out her wrist.
I don't know if I'm necessarily as good at tying knots as you, so I might need a little help, but I'll do my best.
No worries, take your time.
And I think on that, we pull to a different corner of Dabathati's farmhouse where we find Rev and a Bhikkhu. I think Rev's piece of jewelry is a little like pendant that looks like it could tie around her neck, it could tie around her wrist, it could tie around anywhere, and like the end of it almost looks skull-like, almost like a little bit porous, like a piece of bone, with some black engravings on it. And if you're cool with it, Abiko, I think yours also like kind of mirrors Rev's a little bit, but obviously has your own embellishments on it.
Yeah, I think Abiku's sits like a choker because she's big. But she, do you want some help to put yours on? Everyone else seems to be doing like a whole thing.
Yeah, you know what? Why not? I was thinking of tying it around my upper arm here. And she holds out like her bicep basically, to you. You know, like a bond.
No, that is smart. You have to be careful flexing though, you don't want to break it.
Yeah, well, you know, I trust Dewey's craftspersonship. If this thing can break with a simple flexion of the bicep, anyway. And she presents her arm to you.
And she'll start doing it up. So, I can call Grim, and we just had not talked about what is going on.
Right, yeah, okay, you know what? That would actually make a lot of sense, because I did try to summon Grim, like, the other day while I was fighting, you know, my entropic beast, in the court.
Oh.
And it got a good hit on me. It sort of pummeled me into the grave. We were fighting in a graveyard, long story. Yeah, looks like we can share them now.
Okay, my bad. I was trying to help Vasanti, and I thought something of yours would help.
No, I'm glad you were able to do that. That actually makes me feel good, Abiku. It's good to know that, well, the world is in capable hands with yours.
Oh, yes, of course. Would you help? And Abiku will turn around and, like, lift her hair up.
Oh, yeah, of course. And she, like, also takes your piece of jewelry and starts putting it around your neck. Mm-hmm. And as you do, you feel, like, her cold, dry fingers, like, graze against your skin, and there's, like, a moment of silence as she works, and she says, "I'm really glad I got to know you, Abiku. It's good to have someone like you here who understands what it's like to come back, to fight for a world that's changed."
I am glad I got to know you too. I know we got off on a weird foot. I had a whole, like, chosen one complex thing.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna just let you figure that out on your own. Here, and she finishes the clasp and, like, sort of thumps you in like a sibling-like manner on the back.
Thank you.
Hey, listen, Abiku. If anything happens, can you take care of her for me?
Of course, but you have to make the same promise for me. And she looks at Shunyi.
Right. Of course. And I think, speaking of Shunyi, we pan to the corner of the farmhouse that she's in, and we see that she's kind of tracked down Voska and Gentle, sort of in like the same area, and is sort of like, I think, wringing her fingers together a little bit, looking between the two of you, and she's sort of going, Gentle, Voska, I think I have something that belongs to the two of you that I asked for back in the chasm, back when I was desperate and hungry. It won't be so easy for me to give it back. It did save my life. So if I were to just give it up as is to you, I might, well, you know. But there is a way for the two of you to get it back, I think.
I think Voska closes the distance. And if Shunyi so allows, like, holds her hand onto her shoulder. Not at any risk to you. You are precious to her.
Of course. Of course. I've been meditating a lot these past few days, ever since the dust began to fall. And I think I'll be able to pull out these aspects that belong to the two of you and gift them to you, but the process of receiving it again will be tremendous.
Is doing it here safe? I don't want to put anyone at risk for it.
This is a beautiful farmhouse. I would hate for it to burn. So maybe during the concert?
Yeah.
Certainly. If that is safe and you are certain.
Yes, I am certain. All right, then we'll talk more tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think on that, we are going to pan over across this impromptu dinner to find a different Keeper Paragon pair, the heroes of Sen. Oka and Sitlali, how are the two of you putting on your pendants?
I think that Dewey kind of shoved both of them into Oka's hands as he was anxiously going around and passing them out. And they kind of like look at both of them, these reminiscent of the chisel, but with less weight, a little bit lighter, a different kind of weapon, so to speak. And Oka looks up and I think catches Sitlali's eyes, I'm sure, from across the room, and they kind of get out of their cuddle pile with Kane and Jiran, pull themselves up out of the pillows and cross the room. And if Sitlali is sitting, I think Oka actually comes to like kneel down in front of them on both of their knees and gives them a deeply tired but fond smile. And Oka, kneeling, holding one of the pendants in each of their hands. And I think they go to like unclasp one of the necklaces to put it around Sitlali's neck, and then their eyes fall down slightly to the skull that houses Adam's soul. And they make a kind of face. I don't really know if that's where I'm supposed to be too.
You know, that's fair. That's fair. And like Sitlali gives this kind of awkward laugh and like almost self-consciously like puts a hand over the skull. And there's like a tiny, you would notice there's like a tiny bit of a shake to it. As they are trying to downplay the weight of what they are carrying.
And Oka reaches out their hand and puts it over Sitlali's on top of the skull, immediately stopping that downplay, I think. And they look with this kind of reverence and focus that reminds you that they are, in fact, a prince, and that ritual is part of who they are, too. And they smile, still, this tired fondness. Draw your sword, Keeper of Sen.
Of course, my paragon. And they do.
My paragon. Sounds funny coming from you.
Is there something you would prefer, Princelet?
All right, there it is. Yep, all right. And Oka smiles sideways, this little smirk coming out of the corner of their broken lips as they start to tie the pendant around the hilt of Sitlali's rapier instead. And then, I think once that's done, they go to their back and they unsheath Dream Hunter and balance it in their hands, looking at it like it's the lightest thing in the world and it's also the heaviest stone. And they hold it out to Sitlali to tie her pendant around.
And they do. With the same, because ritual is in their bones as much as it is Oka's, and there is a very deliberateness to all of it. And I think the weave kind of not bends, but tightens almost around them, and the wings come out and kind of split into 4 to mirror Oka's in this like swirling alcohol ink as they tie this pendant to Dream Hunter.
And then I think with the blade in both of their laps, Oka looks and they nod. Bound by fate, blood, and the gods.
And choice.
And change. And all other things. And Oka leans forward and takes the back of Sitlali's neck and presses their foreheads together and closes their eyes and holds them together like that for a long moment.
And on that, we are going to pan to a different corner of Dabathati's homestead to find the keeper and paragon of Galtanger. Dewey! Toktoa is sort of like towering over you, like her arms are crossed in front of her chest. She's looking at you. What does your pendant of fate look like?
Dewey's is sort of it's a web of like chains with the chisel part as like a segment in the chain. His wraps around the upper part of his thigh, and he turns to Toktoa and he's like, the one I made for you is a little different. You mind if I just, it's really complicated. Can I just put it on you?
Yeah, go ahead. And she sort of like awkwardly leans down because you're much shorter than her.
Yeah, I think Dewey gets on like the arm of a couch. He like stands on top of the arm of the couch to get to the, like it goes around her neck. And then like the chisel part sits flat on her sternum, and it sort of splits into 2 around the edges of like where her rib cage are. And it's sort of like a chain chest piece a little bit.
Oh, this is actually pretty badass.
Yeah, I figured you might like that. Thanks.
I do like it. Why the leg?
Oh, originally I was gonna make like an armband, but I have no upper arm strength, and I figured it would fall off of my bicep.
You know what? That's a pretty smart piece of design there. And listen, Cardew, thanks for making all these on such short notice.
Yeah, no problem. I just need a couple days to sleep, and then I'll be ready to go for the big fight.
Well, the Alliance is in your debt.
No debt. The only thing we owe is to each other.
I like that. And she sort of claps you on the shoulder and squeezes like once, kind of paternalistically, and clears her throat, turns, and you get this, and she's almost like gathering up her courage for something. She sort of straightens her back and turns to the corner where you see Rev and Abiku. You see like Rev putting the finishing touches of like putting on the clasp around Abiku's neck, and Toktoa lets out a, all right. Well, here we go. And she starts to stride across the room toward Abiku and Rev. As she's cutting across this room, I think there's an interruption.
Yeah, Oka's wing like knocks over some random piece of pottery that they then kind of catch a little bit. Whew, okay, that's fine. And they cut in front of Toktoa like as they're doing that, and they turn to Abiku. Abiku, hey, did you still want to sleep together tonight?
Oh, yes, yeah, that would work for me.
Toktoa freezes in the middle of the room on that, and like her face kind of blanches. And she like pretends that she's looking at a book that's right next to her, like on like a coffee table, and like reaches down and picks it up and starts reading it, and turns around and like walks in a random direction.
If I may, I think Abiku looks over Oka. You are holding that upside down.
Huh? Oh,
You are holding
it's-
the book.
No, it's a Kyrian thing.
Oh,
we read
okay.
books in common upside down. You know,
Oh.
because when we're on horseback and we pull out books while we're riding, it's a thing. It's culturally informed. And she very quickly walks away.
I just look at Oka. She is so cute when she pretends.
Do you have to speak over my head? It makes me feel really short.
I am sorry that you are short.
Not exactly where I was going, but we should. Well, if you still want to, we should head out.
Yeah. Okay. Let me say bye to Shuni.
All right, my love. Shrini goes over to you, sort of kisses you, says, have fun trying to dream. Don't go too deep in.
We will be careful. Don't worry. You have a good time. Be careful.
I will. All right, I'll see you later tonight.
See you. I love you.
I love you too. And Shrini kisses you again, goes off to do her own thing. And I think as the two of you go off, upstairs to do your mysterious sort of dreaming entanglement. We're gonna cut to break there. So thank you everyone so much for tuning in so far to Arc 8, Episode 3 of Transplanar RPGs The Second Stranger. We will be back in 10 minutes. See you very soon. Spisho, Pisho.
Life is pain.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Arc 8, Episode 3 of Transplanar RPGs The Second Stranger. Some quick content warnings before we hop right back into the session. They may include fantasy violence, apocalypse, trauma and grief, depictions of war, body horror, gore, blood and bloodletting, death of loved ones, familial struggles, complex and complicated relationships, romance and references to sexual entanglement, monsters and monstrosity, and eldritch abominations. So use !CW in chat to get a look at our content warnings at any time, and !safety to learn about the cast's lines and veils to know what territory we'll never get into, no matter how dark things get. So with that out of the way, let's hop right back into the session. Dabathati Saeed's private meditation room is a rounded chamber made of warm, porous wood. Gems, bones, books, scrolls sit on shelves carved from polished sandalwood. A soft red light filters through a shaded window. Even softer cushions and extremely soft pillows line the floor. Incense burns, filling this chamber with a thin haze of smoke. This place has all the trappings of a dream prophet's desired furnishings, but Oka and Abiku. As the two of you set foot inside this meditation chamber, you see Halo in the middle of rearranging everything in here. She's kind of like muttering under her breath, posers. And she's like migrating the incense holder to the west windowsill, facing it away from the north, right? She's like turning all the mirrors so they're not looking at the center. She's even repositioning like the pillows on the floor. And she's like in the middle of this hustle and bustle, right? Her like beautiful, elegant robes like squishing by her legs. She pauses and she looks up and turns to see the two of you entering. There the two of you are. It's about time. Are you ready?
Just don't, Halo, hey, hi. We're here, we're ready. Hello?
Hello, Paragon of Sen, and Keeper of the Raven Queen. It is an honor to shepherd the two of you through the dream realm.
Yes, my name is Abiku. You can just call me Abiku, that's okay. I realize you've not met me.
Certainly, Abiku.
Right, so should we, you know what you're doing here better than I do. And Oka kind of starts fidgeting with the new, like, tassel of Vasanti's kind of on the end of their ribcage, just playing with it back and forth, the little gold coin in between their fingers. And they look at Abiku. So, right, I did make you this promise that I would help you try to dream again for the first time since coming back from the dead, since that was a problem for me, and it sucks.
Yeah, I am ready to do this. I like your horns, by the way. They are very pretty.
I was born this way. As soon as I, was shepherded into this world, my parents took one look at me and thought that perhaps a dream prophet was my destined future, and they turned out to be correct.
Oh, I'm glad you weren't like forced or anything then.
No, this is my destiny.
Oh.
Right.
Oh, it's okay. When this is over, you could do something else, like, I don't know, like accounting, or who knows?
If this is over, Abiku Ishtar, Keeper of the Raven Queen, the rivers of fate are in divergence at the threshold of the conclusion of the Second Stranger War. It is entirely up to us how the future of Endake plays out.
You definitely lots of very important. Where should I sit?
Oh, well, yes, make yourselves comfortable upon these pillows, cushions, and blankets. There is a lot of literature about the best position to induce a lucid dream or to commune with ancestral knowledge, but I think, based on a lot of trial and error and my own philosophical meanderings, that the best position is the one you're most comfortable in. So sleep however you want to sleep. Body-wise, of course.
Biku literally sits where she was standing.
Wonderful. That works.
Right. Okay. You don't have a heartbeat, so I can't hear you. So and I think Oka also sits down right there and puts their back to Abiku's back, so they can just like get a read on her body.
Are the two of you quite sure you don't want to lie down?
I have not lied down to sleep in a year. I don't really sleep. I don't know if that will be a problem.
It shouldn't be. Don't worry. Perhaps for a dream prophet a little less skilled than me, but I'll be able to usher in a nice sleep. All right, then, I will join the two of you, like so. And she very elegantly and gracefully lifts up her skirt and, sits down at the same time in, a flurry of robes and puts her back against the two of yours as well. So the three of you are triangulated at the threshold of the meditation room. And she very, subtly pulls some pillows in and, cushions her hips and, pads some blankets around all of you. Wonderful. Then please, the two of you, close your eyes, focus on my voice, focus on your breathing. In, out, and she begins to recite a sutra in Tulongan. This kind of low rolling scripture that goes back and forth, making you think of being swayed to sleep in a bassinet almost. It's very rhythmic, very low. And as the two of you close your eyes, you find yourselves sinking into slumber, lulled into peace by Halo's sweet rolling sutra. And when you open your eyes again, you're in a grand hall. Tall marble walls stretch toward a vaulted ceiling. And on that ceiling, you see panels of colorful, intricate paintings. On your feet, or rather beneath them, you see lush tracts of carpet stretching from this central atrium you're in toward different hallways branching off like arteries from a heart. A ribbon of stairs coils up to various balcony levels above your heads. And at the back of this grand hall, we see the skeleton of a massive Tarask. Oka and Abiku, the two of you stand in the center of this foyer, and next to you, Halo is cupping her fingers in front of her waist as always, looking around quite attentively. Ah, yes, of course, this must be the Iron Citadel. It looks like maybe it's the atrium. This place is coming from you, Abiku. I can sense it, like warmth radiating from a fire. How are the two of you feeling?
It's weird. I have been here twice now. One time I died, one time I did not die, so...
Yes, well, your subconscious must have perceived this place as a location of great import. Must be why it's surfacing now.
Oka is staring at the giant Tarask skeleton, one head cocked to the side, and I think they start moving toward it, like they're going to go check for stab wounds on the bone plate of its chest. I feel like I know that guy from somewhere. I know that guy. No, I know that guy. Why is he looking at me like that?
Oka, breathe. The dream responds to your emotions. You must both be in control and go with the flow of fate.
Do you want to get married again?
Huh?
I'm going to go this way, if that is okay.
Because you turn and start to, stride away. I think there's a thunk noise as one of the ribs of the Tarask, breaks off and falls onto the ground.
No, I definitely know that guy. Yeah, no. Yeah.
And as you look at the Tarask between you and Halo, you see you think you see, knife or gouge marks on some of, the skeletal structure of the bones that you're almost certain, were scored from a very familiar position. Okay. What do you mean, get married again?
Get married again?
What?
You want to get married again?
No, that's not. You said something about marriage.
You don't want to get married again?
No. Yes? No. What? Okay, is this how you really feel?
What? Abiku? Abiku, wait, hold on.
No. And as you start to turn and move, it's like moving in a dream. Like it's really slow. Like you're trying to run, but you can't. And like Halo walks toward you in like perfect speed. Like she hasn't been slowed down at all. She's just right in front of you. And Abiku, you're also moving in like super slow motion. And we watch Halo roll her eyes and walk up to both of you in like normal speed. And she taps both of you on like the backs of your necks, and you feel this like heavy weight fall, and you're sort of like rooted to the spot. Please don't try to run away when I'm trying to help the two of you. Oka, reveal to me the truth of your heart. And you feel this like warm sensation, like water just falling over your shoulders and your back, just wash over you, and you can suddenly move in normal speed again. And so can you, Abiku. You're also kind of jolted out of this like kind of like molasses, icy like paralysis that you've been sunk into. And when you turn, Oka, kind of staggering, and you look at Halo, inside of you, you feel this emotion that had impelled you to say that thing to Halo in the first place, I think, bubble up again.
I can't believe she zoned of truth me. And I think it all just kind of spills out of Oka's mouth like a waterfall. I do. I love you. I've loved you since we were kids. I've loved you for my entire life. And I do want to be with you, but I'm terrified. I'm so fucking scared, Halo, of losing you, because everything I seem to touch seems to fall away and become just lost to me. Everything is lost, and I can't make plans for the future because I don't know it. I'm not like you. I've never been good at this, and I'm terrified, and I'm just trying to do one thing for Abiku so that she can dream and have a good dream before we all almost die tomorrow, and I don't know what I'm doing ever, and I don't know how to be in love without holding a sword about it and hurting someone, and I don't want to hurt you, and I've never wanted to hurt you because I am in love with you.
Oka, And then something bad happens. A hole. Round, black, immaculate. Forms in the ceiling of this dream. At first, it's no bigger than the head of a pin. But by the moment, by the minute, by the second, it metastasizes. It becomes the size of a ping pong ball, a dinner plate, the wheel of an ox cart. And as it does, the edges of the iron citadel begin to bleed away, like writing in sand ceding space to a blank, white, desolate, lonely expanse of dead grass, dead souls, dead gods. And Halo's face turns from this sort of like brimming kind of hope and fear and this almost like intimacy into panic, welling in her eyes, but it's a very controlled and restrained panic here. Like she's riding a horse that's beginning to buck, but she's like still in control of the situation. And she looks at you, Oka, and says, Oka, this is just a dream. This is you.
No,
it's coming from you.
No,
it's okay. Breathe.
It's happening again. It's happening again.
Breathe.
It's happening again.
This isn't real.
No.
Oka,
Breathe.
No. Deep in, Oka. And the last of the citadel vanishes. And the three of you are in Tungal, the dead realm, with the seed of annihilation blooming above your heads like a flower. Halo in that moment lets out a cry, and Abiku and Oka, the two of you, see her vanish. Just like that. In one blink, she was there next to you, and then she's gone. And before either of you can do more than just react with a breath, that's when you see her. On the horizon. On her knees, actually, back turned to the two of you, wearing Oka's black sleeveless turtleneck. Dr. Hitsagatan Aluso. On the day of the concert for the end of the world, Oka Hien and Abiku Ishtar do not wake. Halo, the Dreamwise, is frantic. She crouches over Oka and Abiku's immobile forms laid out on the floor of the Sayyid's living room. Next to her kneels Emperor Zhen, the paragon of Mengshen Zhudi. This human person calmly sweeps their palms over a bhikku's body, and then the body of their true-born child. Though their face does not betray anything but concentration, the magic rolling off their body is desperate. Searching. And in a shimmer of light, Omen is summoned, a beautiful dark wooden gutian. They begin to play, each note resonating through Oka and Abiku's bodies, but still, they do not wake. At this point, hours have elapsed since Oka and Abiku's lack of consciousness was discovered late last night. Halo had jolted awake, but neither of her companions joined her. And now, with mere hours to spare before the concert begins, it's Kane who speaks up. Well, everyone, regardless of if Oka and Abiku manage to wake up in time, the show must go on. We have too much riding on this. What do you say, everyone? Places?
Only if we can be sure that we can wake them. We can't do this without both of them.
Oka's mother-father looks up, and I think those beads coming off of her royal crown sort of jingle lightly against each other, and you see those mismatched eyes, one with 3 pupils, one with only 1, bore into you, Jiran. They will wake.
Then places. We should be ready for when they do.
And on that, we cut to the concert stage, fully built. It is a massive structure, 100 feet wide, 80 feet deep, with an arched roof of over 60 feet tall to shield all of you from this falling white and red dust. There are no seats here. There's no audience, except for one, of course. In the sky, all around you, crimson eyes blink, irises swirl, pupils rove. And as all of you prepare for the concert to begin, I want each of you, except for Abiku and Oka for now, of course, to tell me what your role is. Let's start with Voska.
How fucking dare you? Voska is performing. And the entire time she's never been this nervous. I think there's perhaps one other moment before a big interaction with many audience members in which she was this nervous. And her role is to get on that stage with Parable and perform the most entrancing dance of her life, to bring everyone's spirits up and invite whoever is on stage to finally dispatch of the empty beast that lying before her.
I love that. What kind of dance are you doing? Is it just to draw attention, or is there a different kind of purpose to it as well?
I think it is to inspire. I think the kind of dance that she is performing, she is wearing this skin-tight kurta that wraps around her body really tightly, and there's these, the paragon that came before her, she has this bit of cloth that she wraps around her waist, and her trousers are tight against her legs, and the kind of dance that she does is elegant and light, flighty and inspiring, and she will be using Paragon to be swinging from one edge to the other of the stage, and also using Parable as an instrument, where she will play almost like a rowdy, rambunctious stringed instrument, not dissimilar from an electric guitar. And she just weaves that sound around to just rally everybody.
Yeah, okay. I think on that, we're gonna cut and pan away from this particular part of the stage where you're rallying, inspiring, goading, right? Across this wooden platform, a spotlight following you, music swelling both from your instrument and amplified magically by various runes and sigils that Dabathati and Kothor have placed along the pylons. We're gonna pan to a different part of this stage to find Vasanti. How are you assisting?
I think Vasanti is become like the pyrotechnics expert. So like she is using like dimension door and stuff and shooting all over different parts of the stage to light fireworks as needed. And as you know, the show is building and swelling to crescendos. Some platforms that she had installed near the top of the space, she goes up there and like swelling with the music creates a draconic dragon spirit just sort of flying around and above the stage of, you know, it's looks like it's on fire, but sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's green, sometimes it goes red, and it's just roaring and filling the sky with this bright light.
I love that. I think like sound and music crescendo, these fireworks, I think explode in these massive colorful blooms as this draconic spirit coils and coils and coils above where Voska is also dancing. And we see like slowly one by one, those like massive irises of all the eyes on the horizon begin to drift in the direction of the concert stage and start to notice it. And I think it's around your moment of the performance, Vasanti, that several shoot beams down, pulverizing massive spears of light that I think are countered by this huge like force field shield that the other alliance members and allies and friends are busy keeping erected as they're patrolling the perimeter of the stage as well. And I think on the dragon spirit swirling through the atmosphere, we're gonna pan down over and find Gentle. Gentle, what is your role in this concert?
Is there glitter?
Absolutely.
I think glitter, and then probably like an orb of light attached at both of my wrists. I am doing the equivalent of flying through the air, creating like a light show, like just elaborate shapes and stuff, and glitter just trailing behind. Very Peter Pan, now that I think about it.
Gentle's pink era. I'm into it. You're just flying through the air, raining glitter. I love this. I love this. Okay, yeah, fantastic. I think along the coiling draconic spirit, we also see Gentle's form, like spinning through the air, pouring this like sparkling glitter that starts to weave together with this crimson and white dust, right? And illuminates it. This dead anti-soul matter gets sparkled and becomes lucent and becomes backlit, I think, by the orbs of light emanating from Gentle's hands, as well as the glitter they're trailing behind them. And we follow a literal sparkle trail to find, in this crowd, Duran.
Duran's role in the Paragonsert, I think, is that of Void Zookeeper. His role specifically is to ensure that the empty beasts that are being utilized for this performance are kept in line, kept in control, and are not being controlled by the stranger, by Oblivion, by anybody who would oppose us. I think their connection to the empty, it's their job to observe it, not to wield it. They can't afford to wield it, but to observe it in order to get a better sort of connection and sense of how the empty beasts are doing and whether or not we're in any real danger.
Yeah, Voska, you described that you were on stage with these monsters, right? With these beasts. So I think maybe, Duran, we find you in the wings observing and like listening both, I think, to your brain, your mind, but also now to that pulsing, throbbing wound in the whole of your soul. And as we see these chained and trapped entropic beasts, like snarling and fretting against their restraints on the stage, accompanied by Voska, with every snarl, every jerk forward against these chains, Duran, you also feel a similar kind of throbbing beginning to pulse harder. more painfully, more insistently against the veins of your soul. And like, I think there's even a moment in the concert where like your vision goes a little hazy as like Voska hits a particularly high note and several of the entropic beasts like a snarl. We see that two-headed snake kind of like thump like one of its heads, smash it against the ground even as it's chained down onto the floor and like crater like a wooden hole on the ground. And that gets your vision to pulse and like flutter and blur in front of your eyes, and you hear like a growl coming from really close to you, like a and like you're like, oh god, like did one of the beasts get empty? And it takes you a minute to realize that it's coming from you.
I think Duran like jerks his head at that and like snarls a little bit, his lip moving, and they try and like shake their head like it's a fucking etch-a-sketch and like trying to clear it. And they try and center themselves, look over towards where Voska is performing, and they try and push as far as they can this feeling of pain, of ferocity, this newfound ferocity, like deep down, just trying to push it down as far back as they can, because they can't deal with this right now. They don't have time to deal with this right now. And I think they're sort of like fighting themselves at the same time that they are trying to keep an eye on these empty beasts.
The more you try to fight this newfound pulsing kind of ferocity trying to break free of your chest, the harder the struggle becomes. The blurriness gets thicker and thicker, and Duran, I think you instinctively know that this is it. You're coming up on borrowed time here. It's going to be now or never very soon. But we have one more person to account for here. We pan away from you, Duran, and we settle in on Dewey.
Dewey has helped a little bit with the tech setup. He's helped a little bit with the lights. He's directed some wizards to keep the lights going, and also to like point them in the direction of the eyes if they get too close. These enormous floodlights. But as soon as the first few notes of the concert start, he's delegated everything off to other people, and he runs for the teleportation dais because he's got other business to take care of. All this distractions going on.
I think the Alliance has set up a impromptu teleportation dais here at Fireroot Farm, especially for this express purpose. And it's like not made of beautiful stone carved with these special runic sigils like at Dr. Hitsagaton's homestead, but it's kind of like a hackneyed, kind of put together real fast. It's like barely made from proper stone. It hasn't been sanded off properly. Kind of looks like a hunk of a boulder you have to clamber on top of, and like several sigils are just sort of etched along the side. As you approach this dais, which is maybe, let's say, like 30 feet off to like the side in the grass, in this fallow field of the stage itself, what do?
I climb atop this boulder of a dais, and I put in the runes for the URL's most high security stockroom.
All right. And you initiate the transfer. Dewey, your form unravels. You feel yourself pulling away like lovers at a train station, and your atoms scatter. Your mind comes loose, you discorporate. For a fraction of reality, light, sound, space, time, all these reified concepts, they cease to exist. You are, simply put, nothing. And then your feet hit solid ground, you stagger against a concrete floor, and the world around you spins into being, all bleeding lines of light and smell like a time lapse of the night sky. And you arrive in the URL. You're in a storeroom, or rather, what used to be a storeroom. Right now, it's just a blasted stretch of tiled floor, a shattered window off to the side, broken table, tools, implements scattered everywhere. Scientific charts stitch the walls here. Some are half burned, others are black and smeared with blood. Frankly, everywhere here, Dewey, smells like death. But more than that, it is completely, utterly, perfectly silent. The only thing you can hear is your own mouth breathing. And after a second, I think, as you like collect your bearings and sort of step off of this like miniature dais at the back of the storeroom, you can hear your own heart beating too. That's how quiet everything is. No whispers, no shouting, no crunching of boots over broken glass. It's just you, Dewey. Instinctually, I think you know this. It's just you. And somewhere else in here, her. What do you do?
Dewey takes a long, deep breath. He undoes the clasp of the bomb watch and pulls it off of his wrist. And true to Lilith's tauntings, nothing quite happens yet. It doesn't explode. He doesn't blow up in a poof of feathers, but he does take a look at the underside, the part that was flush against his wrist this whole time. And he takes out his set of tools and, using a very small set of screwdrivers, removes a piece of the watch and then leaves the watch sitting on the floor of the stockroom. And then he takes that piece with him and books it out of the storeroom towards Lilith's chambers.
Okay. What exactly have you done while you fiddled with your watch?
So there's a mechanism in the watch that would alert Lilith that Dewey had taken off the watch, I assume. So he wants to be elsewhere when it goes off and alerts Lilith that, hey, something's gone wrong.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you, I think for your war effort roll here, to be a tinker check. So make me a sleight of hand, like you're using your tools sort of check, and add your proficiency bonus to it.
28.
Noted. 28. As you leave a part of this watch inside the storeroom and you exit, you find yourself in a larger laboratory. Here there's all sorts of like shattered glass. There are what used to be like experiment tables strewn with blood and gore and other kinds of fluids you don't want to think about. And the ground is also shattered with all kinds of liquids and corpses. Though there aren't too many corpses. There are some remnants of corpses that look like maybe they've been eaten into, but most of them are face down and they're barely recognizable. Corpses of monsters, corpses of researchers, people, beasts. Even, I think you see in like a corner of this lab, like the fallen form of an emissary. It looked like it was once a bird aflame, but now that flame has gone out. It's very ominous and sinister because these hallways are completely silent, but they're still sort of like pulsing red, but the alarm has long since gone quiet. So it's just the sound of your own breath, the sound of like your feet crunching over this like shattered glass, and like the pulsing of like the red emergency lights going bright and low, bright and low, bright and low. When they go low, it's completely dark because there are no windows in this particular hallway. So you're like, we see you in like flashes of light, of blood red light, as you're just like running down a hallway, getting closer and closer and closer, almost like you're jumping through time as we don't see you and then see you and then don't see you and then see you. And Dewey, that's when you hear another sound. Somewhere deeper in the facility, as you round a corner, you hear the unmistakable hissing noise of a sealed hermetic chamber door sliding open. And you hear like heels clacking down a hallway, like probably one or two over from the one you're in.
Yes, I think I stop for a moment just so that my footsteps don't give me away. And then as soon as I hear the heels further down the hall, I keep going.
You resume your investigation to find Forge. And after, I think, a couple of false starts, like you open up a couple offices and you look around cabinets and stuff, not there. Like you open up like a door and you like rifle around a desk. You like peer into experiment chambers, not there. You finally strike gold. This particular workshop chamber is an understated one. It's like chamber 32B or something like that. It's not one of the first ones that leaps to mind where you think Lilith would keep a prize mule, right? But perhaps her logic is to hide something in plain sight. So here, workshop chamber 32B. The hermetic seal hisses open as I think you're very easily able to hack into the console, just given how good you are with your tools. And you see almost like this is like an active laboratory. There's like a single bench, a single workbench in the center, all kinds of tools just sort of floating in midair, almost like they've been left in stasis. Like you feel magic still sort of cupping the air here, and upon that workbench is Forge. And next to Forge is the chassis of like a replica. As soon as your eyes land on Forge, you feel Galtanger rising in your soul, urging you to grab it.
I wrap one of my arms around the real Forge, and then I hold out another hand very gingerly to pick up the small false Forge, sort of like looking at it, trying to figure out what its deal is, if it's worth taking with me, if it's dangerous to take with me.
Whatever its deal is, there are tons of schematics laid out and like notes written in Lilith's long, slanted, messy longhand that you recognize. It definitely hasn't been infused with any kind of magic yet. It's sort of just a base. So right now it's just sort of like the chassis for what would be a kind of metallic version of Forge. But you can grab her notes if you want.
Yeah, I'll stuff them into the opening of this metallic jar.
Okay, you grab the schematics and the notes and you stuff them into the opening of the jar, and you grab Forge as well. And as soon as your fingers make contact with the outside of Forge, this beautiful glazed kintsugi strung vase, like this warm feeling spreads through the tips of your feathered fingers into your body as you're reunited with your Paragon God weapon, right? And you hear like Galtanger sort of singing in your soul, and the singing emanates out, and so it seems to ring against Forge's interior as well. And those cracks that form the different shards of Forge where it was splintered by Galtanger in the first place, those cracks light up, right as you hold on to it, and like your own power surges through it. What do you do next?
Empowered by having my weapon with me again, I think I head back in the direction of the storeroom to go find Lilith.
Okay. Given your 28 and your 24 from earlier, I think when you return to that storeroom, it's inside a greater lab, right? So the door to the lab itself remains open. Like Lilith must have input some sort of code that didn't let it shut behind her. And you see her with her back turned to you at the threshold of the storeroom. The door of the storeroom is open and she's looking at the ground. Her like head cocked to one side, that long, limpid, kind of pale golden hair hanging sort of at the back of her waist. And she's sort of like leaning on one hip, right? Like her hand cocked on it. And the other hand is sort of like, I think, playing with one end of her hair as she's just sort of looking down at this undone watch.
I think Dewey leans against the doorway and sort of, he's been running this whole time, so he's still breathing kind of heavily, and he just waits for Lilith to notice, to like feel his eyes on the back of her head.
She stops playing with one end of her hair and then straightens her cocked head. And then, without turning around, you hear that perennially exhausted, low, kind of hoarse, raspy voice ring out and say, Cardew, Cardew, Cardew. Back in the lion's den. I have to give you credit for that. I didn't think you were brave enough to see me here again. Alone.
You didn't think a lot of me ever to begin with, huh?
And why should I?
Well, I'm standing here with Forge, and look at you. You've got my old watch.
At that, Lilith turns. She sort of turns very sharply on her heel, and you see that in one hand she's actually got like the remnant of the watch. And she looks at you, and those limpid, kind of pale, washed out blue eyes fall on Forge back at your hip. And she, like, her face darkens immediately. Her brow, like, knits together for just a fraction of a second, and then she, like, relaxes her face once more. Well, look at you. Coming in here, zipping around the URL while you think my guard is down. So what? You have Forge back. I have you here too, don't I?
And you here, alone with the rest of your admittedly stronger friends. What are you but a failure?
Well, maybe I was a failure once, but I figured the watch out pretty good. You did put explosives in there, didn't you?
She lets out like a low, coarse growl, and she clenches the fist around the watch so tight that the glass face of it cracks, and you see some of her blood dribble out. And she like opens up her fist, and we just see like the tangled mess of leather and glass and metal just fall down from her palm and like scatter like sand onto the ground.
What? Is this your idea of taunting me?
Well, not you, but this whole place is not a good place, and I kind of figured the explosive might be a pretty good use. This might be a pretty good place for it.
What are you talking about?
And the detritus at her feet blows up. So I think from the outside of the URL, which is this massive facility built into the mountainous jungle of Nawa Island, which is no longer an island, it's just Nawa Mountain now, in the middle of these salt flats. We see from a distance, the facility just sort of like shudder once, and then there's like a massive noise and like a mushroom explosion just emanates outward. And we see like roof goes flying, like metal scraps rain down from the sky, like the eyes swirling in the atmosphere off sort of turn and like fix onto this particular area of chaos. And we push back in like through various bits of scrap metal littered all throughout this jungle back into this laboratory where the storeroom was. And Dewey, where do we find you in the middle of this wreckage?
I think they were both standing way too close for comfort, and they both got blown into like the opposite wall. But Dewey fared a little bit better, and he gets up in the middle of this burning wreckage, takes a moment to gather his bearings and also make sure Forge is on him, and sees Lilith's lying like face down, I think, in one of the corners, and he grabs her limp wrist and then no. grabs her by the wrist and then digs in deep with his connection with Dusty to use infoportation to get himself and Lilith out of the burning building.
Okay, yeah, so Lilith has definitely been taken by surprise by this explosion, and because you had planned this in advance, I don't think you're really caught in the blast too much at all, because you knew it was coming. We do find Lilith in the middle of this wreckage. She is face down, like her face is covered by her hair, and she's got like blast and scorch marks all around her, and the lab is gone. The lab is completely gone, the storeroom is gone, the ceiling is gone. You actually see bits of the jungle around you, as like this part has been just completely blown open. Like the far wall that like was maybe like 3 feet of just pure steel blasted open. And we see like the outside crimson strewn forest like off like 30 feet off to the right. But she's not dead, you're not dead, but she seems like heavily winded. And she's still kind of breathing kind of shallowly, and she's letting out this as you like grab onto her wrist and pull her up. And as you pull her up, her hair falls out of her face, and she's like, I think you don't even need to make a strength check for this. You just get a sense that she's really light. She's really waithish and thin, right? And as you pull her up, she weighs like nothing. And you look up at her, and her eyes are a little unfocused, and she just goes, what do you do? And she opens her eyes, and both of them are bright red. And then you use infoportation. Dewey, in the split second before you reappear in Ndake, you and Lilith both materialize for less than a quarter of a second, okay? You materialize for less than a quarter of a second in what I can only describe as a waiting room. It looks like maybe there's like these like 4 white walls, and there are these kinds, interestingly enough, I think you glimpse things hung on the walls, but it's like for such short of an amount of time that I can't really properly describe them. But you do notice 2 people in this room. It's not a huge room. It's actually rather small. It looks like a private single-person waiting room almost. There you notice a chair, a table, and a person is sitting at the chair, writing on a piece of paper at the table, and that person is Dusty. You notice Dusty in their corporeal form, and they're sort of writing on like a slip of paper or something, and the other person is standing on the other side of the table, and her arms are crossed over like a broad, kind of a burly, muscular chest. She's got a shaved head, and she's got these intricate tattoos all over her skin of these concentric circles, specifically at the back of her forehead, like interlocked, and like fanning out over like every piece of skin that's exposed. And she's wearing this kind of like nondescript, just like plain black leather armor with her arms crossed over her chest. She's looking down at Dusty, who seems to be like writing on some sort of slip of paper. And she's in the middle of saying, out of, and that's it. And if you want to get anything more than that, I need you to make a perception check.
Oh, rolling for my life. That's a 12. It is a 12 total.
A 12. Okay. You can pick an aspect of this room for me to flesh out with a little bit more detail, but I will hit you with something hard too. Or you can just let it go.
How much is Dusty written in this notebook? Can I make any of it out?
Okay. You want to know? Okay, I'll tell you. I'll tell you, Dewey. So in that quarter of a second, your eyes fall down onto that slip of paper and you focus on it. And you see that it's a form. It appears to be a request form of sorts. It isn't common. And Dusty has filled out their name to be Dusty Quirk. They filled out their age to be less than 1 year. And they're like currently filling out like this one box, which is just like the largest box on the form that says purpose for visit. And Dusty is in the middle. The sentence that they've written so far is, I would really much appreciate the opportunity to talk to Fate and MA. And they're in the middle of writing a G. And then you're gone. And I'll hit you with that consequence later. But before we go back to you, Dewey, Abiku and Oka. Here, in the dream that is Tungal, in the Tungal that is the dream, the two of you see Dr. Hitsagatan Aluso. She kneels on the horizon, so far yet very, very close, her back to the two of you. And both of you feel tethers branching out from your souls, reaching across time, across space, across dream and wake toward him. These are the threads that bind you, the threads that Gentle and Voska can pull, the strings of fate that hold your friendships together. Abiku, Hitsagatan was your first friend. And you were, in many ways, the doctor's first friend as well, and your bond is strong. Oka, they are your soulmate, and you are theirs, and your bond is also strong. Even as Halo vanishes, what did the two of you do?
Now, Oka, we have to be, this is either a dream or a trap.
Biku, you promised me that we would get them back.
We will, but I don't know if this is real.
Then come with me, please. I need it to be real.
I won't let you go alone, but we have to be careful. If this is not real, then we won't have a chance.
We could make it real, right?
I know what I promised Oka, but I don't know. But we can try, and Abiku will put her hand out.
And Oka will take it. And then look. So much hope brimming in their eyes. Sagu?
And Hitsagatan turns from where they're kneeling on the horizon. They turn, and you see them. Their hair is golden, yes. Their eyes are blue, but there's something on their face that is recognizable. You see like their face suddenly like eyebrows rise in surprise, and then like a look of immense deep concern sort of flash across their expression. And though they are miles and also just feet, and hours and also just seconds away from you, you hear them say back to you, Oka? Abiku? How? How are the two of you here?
And Oka breaks into a run towards them.
Biku will go after Oka, I guess?
The two of you run toward Itaka Tenaluso, and Abiku, you feel the ghost of a presence whisper against the lobe of your left ear, like wind gusting across an open field. Okay, it swells in the pit of your heart, a feeling of, what is it? Devotion? Conviction? A full, wrenching, bursting trust. And then you hear the voice, Abiku, of the goddess of wind and faith, lover of Gal Tanger, the forgotten Salki, whisper in the confines of your mind, my paragon from another time. Don't. And on that word, don't, that ghost of a presence whips into a massive breeze, a gust of wind that buffets you backward, away from Dr. Aluso, away from Oka, out of Tungal, back into the Iron Citadel. But this time, Abiku, you're no longer in the atrium with the terrace and the vaulted ceilings and the tables full of fossils and objects and trinkets. You are in the vault of Banur, the graveyard of your forebears. But it is not the blasted battleground that you remember, or even the storage room of a tyrant's trophies. Instead, this version of the vault is full of them, full of your ancestors. And on that, we cut back to Oka. Oka. Abiku vanishes, just like Halo did. And it's just you and Sagu. And that unknowable stretch of time and distance between the two of you folding smaller, 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 until you're there. You're right there. They're within arm's reach. What do?
I kiss them, obviously.
You fall down and you kiss Dr. Aluso, and there's like a as you collide into them, and I think the two of you fall, even if it's okay with you, fall flat onto this blasted grassy field, and they're underneath you, and you feel them. They feel so real. If this is a dream or a trap, but they feel so real. Their body is so solid and soft, and they're there. They smell like them. They smell like green tea and wood smoke. And I think there's a moment where there's a pause, and then they relax and they kiss you back. And they wrap their arms around you and they hold you tight in a deep, desperate hug. And when I think the two of you finally pull away and you look down at Dr. Aluso, they sort of move their head slightly off to the side and look up at you with this unspeakable splendor and wonder. Like you're this marvelous, beautiful thing that they don't quite know how to take in. And then she says, "Oh, Oka, can you really not tell us apart?" And Oblivion grabs the front of your shirt and yanks down. And on that, we cut back to the stage of the concert. Bosca, you're on the stage. Yes. Flanked by entropic beasts, Gentle is flying through the air alongside this huge draconic spirit. Dewey has left, as all of you know he will be doing, and Jiran is off to the side doing their own thing as well. And it's in the middle of this that two things happen at once. To your left, poof, space and time expand, and Dewey is there, and he is holding onto Lilith's wrist. And the two of them just stumble and tumble onto the stage, sort of rolling over and over and over each other a little bit, from the force of being ejected back into the material plane here. And Dewey, I think you're able to like stand your ground though at the end of it, and like you're on your feet holding onto Lilith almost like a trophy or a prisoner, and she's like gathering her wits again and trying to wrench her wrist out of your hand. And Voska, before you can fully react to this, on your right, Oka tumbles into existence, wrapped in the arms of one Dr. Aluso? But as these two forms finally come to a halt, I think kind of at the very front of the stage, it's Dr. Aluso, or rather Oblivion, who's on top of Oka now. And they look up in like a single motion, right? And in that single motion, all of you who are here, Duran, Gentle, Vasanti, Dewey, Voska, even Lilith, just almost like you're compelled by something greater than yourself. All of your heads turn, your eyes swivel, and you lock onto Oblivion's face as they pull their chin up. And with this kind of like wild, vicious, steadfast smile, they look around up at this stage, taking in the sights, the sounds, the smells, all of this for them. And they say to all of you at once, huh. Interesting little cage you've tried to build for me. But I'm not trapped here with you. Paragons and Keepers, you're trapped here with me. And we're going to end the session there. So thank you everyone so much for tuning into Arc 8, Episode 3 of Transplanar RPGs, The Second Stranger. I've been your GM and creative producer, Connie. My pronouns are they, he, and she. Find me all across the internet at ByConnieChang. That's ByConniechang. GM off the leash. I'm going to pass along introductions up and over to Austin.
What's up? My name's Austin. My pronouns are he, they, she. You can find me on Twitter at SalesConstance, at Sailor, SCT Austin. I'm an award-winning game designer, professional podcaster, and friend of many. Maybe you, maybe not. I don't know. I just got done playing a Biku. I'm trapped in time again as Shar. Abiku's pronouns are she, they. Valiant Dorian's next.
Sure, I can be Valiant Dorian today. Hi everyone, I am Valiant. How does this keep happening to me, Dorian? I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm a TTRPG performer and Twitch variety streamer. You can find me all around the internet at Valiant Dorian or at Also Spirit, but please enjoy that lovely treasure hunt I just sent you out on. And tonight I had the distinct pleasure of playing Voska, Paragon Nebuza, sandwiched between sibling friend and Dewey friend with enemy, and everything's bad. Tune in next week to see how that pans out. She is a she, they pronouns, by the way. Dare?
Hi, I'm Dare, and I'm enjoying Oblivion a normal amount. My pronouns are she, they, and Faye. You can find me on the internet at Dare to Dream RPG. That is DARE, the number 2, DREAM RPG. I've been gentle today, your lovely they, them, who has done nothing wrong once again. And I'm going to throw it over to Erica.
Hi everybody, I'm Erica, she, her pronouns, and I played Vasanti Nakshirzo, your local pyrotechnic expert. And you can find me at Erica Please here on Twitch if you want to see me roleplay in the Red Dead Wild West Gay Cowboy. Yes, please. Erica Please, PLZ, and I will pass it on to Max.
Hey, I'm Max. My pronouns are they, them. I play Dewey for real Kablooey today. If you want to find me on the internet, I am Starchmonger on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Help me blow up there. And I'll pass it to Hamna.
Hello everybody, my name is Hamna. I use any and all pronouns, and I am a TTRPG performer. You can find me on Twitter at @shahid_, where I talk about all of the different projects that I'm a part of. And today I was Duran turning into a monster for real. Gather. I will pass it up and over to C.
Howdy y'all, my name's CA, use they, them pronouns. You can find me making very trans, very gay art on the internet at PieSharpArt. Tonight I played Oka down bad for the big bad Hien, bad dream prophet of the day. So with that, I will pass it back to Connie, who did this to me personally, not my fault. I'm innocent.
Wonderful. So that was awesome. Tune in next week for Arc 8, Episode 4, which is the midpoint of our grand finale arc of Transplanar RPGs, The Second Stranger at 8 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Get it? 8 8 p.m. It's so easy to remember, Easter time. We're gonna be rating someone really awesome right now, no doubt. Give them a follow if you like their stuff. Use the raid message in chat. Tell them Transplanars that you tell them the emotional damage we've inflicted upon you during the stream. We love you so much. See you next week. Spijo, Bijo.